Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting, council meeting of May 13th. Welcome all. Linda, first of all, I want to thank you for having the room rearranged here so that there's seating for everyone that's coming. And so that's great. I always like to point out that there are two recordings going on. There's one recording up in that corner, and there's one on 25th. And they'll be recording the council as we speak, and anyone else that, of course, addresses the council. So welcome all of you. I'm going to call to order at this time. I guess it's 5:31. And Linda, would you take roll call?
Abrahamson.
Here.
Douglas. Here. Priesthood.
Here. And then we have the agenda. I would like to make a change to the agenda, adding the appointment of 2 council members. The second thing I'd like to do is to move that agenda item up to following correspondence so that it's earlier in the on the agenda. Are there any other changes or additions to the agenda? Is there a second? To accept, that's a motion. Yeah, I made a motion. Yeah, okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So we have appointed new council members as 5. This will be 5.0. Okay, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meetings? We'll take them one at a time. April 8th, 2019.
Under the heading, should that be Civic Center?
Nice catch. Are there any other changes? Okay, is there a motion to accept?
I'll move to accept the minutes from April 8th.
Any further discussion? All in favor of accepting the April 8th minutes of the City Council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to the second meeting, April 29th. You've had a chance to review those and look for any changes or corrections. Is there a motion to accept? Make that motion.
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Something.
And then we have the Board of Appeal minutes to approve as well.
Okay, and the Board of Appeals meeting was held on May 7th at 6 p.m. Any changes, corrections? The motion to accept? Make a motion.
I'll support.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mine is an aye also. That's unanimously approved. Thanks for catching that.
You bet.
So, public input. Do you have anyone on the public input list? Richard Hanson.
I'm sorry, he crossed himself out.
Okay. Jody Summit.
I just wanted to talk to the council about the city website. The website is not very user-friendly. This was brought up at a council meeting earlier this year. Clerk Linda Keith said that city staff were responsible for updating the information on the website, but nothing has really changed. As a reporter, I use other governmental websites regularly to gather or confirm information. But in this case, in the case of Tower, the website doesn't have any information that people need on a regular basis. Items that would be helpful to have on the website would be a listing of upcoming meetings and committee meetings on the homepage, listings of regularly scheduled meetings, the city legal notices. It would be really nice if they were posted online. The Tower News is the city's official newspaper, and they do not have a comprehensive website. The legal notices are up for the week. They were in the paper and then they disappeared. So if you're looking for something from 2 weeks ago, it's just not there.
It's a little late for me to ask this, but can everyone in the back hear Jody?
Pretty good.
It would be nice to have the list of council members and staff updated. There's no contact info for the maintenance guys. Several of the links on the website aren't live, they don't go anywhere. Specifically the Tower Civic Center and City Marketplace links. There is no link to Tower Savannah Elementary. There is a link to the charter school, thank you. And then ordinances are posted on the website, but they're just posted by number. So, and there's lots of them. So if you're searching, for information, you have to click on each one, download. It downloads that file. It would just be really nice if there was a title on those ordinances. I mean, I know they do have titles. And then the other thing that would be nice would be notices of openings, for city commissions and the council, along with applications. And then another thing that would be really useful to people would be the canister site info. And I know at our office we field these questions all the time, and if it was on the website, you wouldn't have to call City Hall to find out this basic stuff.
Okay. The website has been up for discussion at other times, and Jody, would you be able to put those points you made? They're very good points. I especially agree with the ordinance one because I've searched for ordinances and I think there's 82.
Yeah.
It takes a while to go through. And so if we can pass those on to staff, and if I can ask staff if is there time in your busy day to make these kinds of changes? I think that currently the website maintenance is assigned to the city clerk, the deputy clerk, correct?
Correct. You can make some of these changes.
Is there, well, how about if, to give you some time, Linda, to go through them, if you review the list that Jody gave, and I think somehow we should have it published because there may be other ideas as well. That was pretty comprehensive, I would say. Then we can prioritize them, Linda, to try to get them done. If you need extra help to get that done, we can have that discussion. I know it's in your job description, but if we need to give you extra help to get that kind of work done, we should, the council should make sure that you have the resources to do it.
Would it be appropriate to add this as an agenda item for the next meeting?
I think it'd be very appropriate. That will give you 2 weeks to review the list. Good point. So, Linda, would you add that to the agenda for the next meeting? Okay, perfect. And then we have Nancy Larson.
I'll stand so you can hear me. I've got a frog in my throat. I'm representing the Tower Savannah Historical Society, and the question is about the Pine Street project, which my understanding from Linda Haugen is that the project is going to begin after the 4th of July. And so the question I have, or two questions actually, are was the depot drainage evaluation report referenced or followed as part of that project? It was a study done by Architectural Resources, commissioned by the city. The city received a $7,500 grant from the Minnesota Historical Society to evaluate the drainage issue of the city-owned historic property, the depot. And a report was completed, and the city council, I believe, approved it back in, I don't know, March 2018. And so there's a full document, and it just outlines some of the issues that should be followed and considered when making any improvements in the impervious surfaces that has been draining into the foundation of the building, which is going to create a problem. And so number one was that evaluation considered in the design of the project so that it doesn't adversely negatively impact the building. That's number one. That's the number one concern. And then also, did the city or the engineering company representing the city file a report with the Minnesota State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, which is a requirement when state funds are used in any kind of project that could have an adverse impact on a historic property. And the property is listed on the National Register of Historic Properties. So it's a concern for the Historical Society because we hope that, in the future, we might be able to partner with the city to get other grants to make improvements to that property. But the initial study that was done on the conditions report on that building was that until you do something with that foundation and address the drainage issues, there's no sense in making any improvements to the roof, the windows, or to the exterior of the structure itself, because the foundation really needs to be addressed first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask both SDH, Matt, and Linda, is that something that you can address today during your report?
Sure.
Or is it something you'd like to?
I can answer it right now if you like. I'm somewhat familiar with the ARI report. I think Linda provided me a copy a couple of years ago when it was completed. I don't remember all the details, but as was stated, I think it was a lot of the foundation, the sidewalks, the gutters, etc. As part of the Pine Street project, you got state dollars to reconstruct the road between two highways. So there was no, we did not include any of the improvements that were recommended from the ARI report. They would not be eligible for the state dollars that we got. However, the city can certainly choose to participate with local dollars and make it a different part of the project. So that answer is no, that we didn't. As far as drainage, we're going to turn Pine Street into a curb and gutter road. I'm actually going to lower the elevation a little bit slightly, so if anything, there will be less water going to the depot. There will not be any more water because of the addition of a curb and gutter. Anything that hits the street is going to stay on the street. It's not going to be allowed to go that way anymore. Obviously, what hits in the parking lot and goes there is going to remain unchanged. So with that being said, we also did not file anything with SHPO because in our view, there is no negative impact at all on the building. We're not changing any of the drainage standards that will go there. If anything, there'll be a little less water going there. So.
Okay. Normally we take public input and it's does for an answer later, but thank you very much, Matt. It sounds like a complete answer. But Nancy, does that address the questions that you asked, or do
Yeah,
you want to set up another agenda item for another meeting to discuss specifically that?
No, I don't think so. It's just that, what are they doing to curb the continuation of water draining into the foundation? Because I know there's going to be some changes to the road. Are you going to vacate that one road? Are you vacating the road next to people or not?
There's a second entrance that we're going to eliminate, but the road itself will still be there. It just won't connect to Pine Street anymore. But Pine Street right now doesn't have any curb and gutter, so any water that hits it can go wherever it wants. With the addition of curb and gutter, we will control it and send it to the river, and there will be less going into the parking lot than goes there now. But the majority of the water that goes to the depot is further in the parking lot, but no, there is not grading changes happening with the 9th Street project for that.
ARI, give suggestions about what to do with the water and that?
Yeah, add gutters, fix foundation, re-pour all the sidewalks, some drain tile around the building, and probably some storm sewer in the parking lot. I don't remember all of the details, but
I know one of the things also was to change the direction that we're plowing or how we're pushing snow right in that area, and I know we've already done that as well. That happened a couple of years ago.
And I believe another one was too, when the work was to be done in that area for any modifications that be considered as far as the flow, how to mitigate the flow. And it sounds like SEH has addressed that with the curb and gutter. But the proximity to the project though, doesn't that require a SHPO notification? I know when we talked about doing the welcome park, SHPO had to be notified of any improvements because of its proximity to the historic property. So I do question whether or not we should have made that contact with the State Historic Preservation Office. Just because state funds are being
Normally,
yeah, and we can look, I certainly can relook at that. Thank you for the comment. Because it's not a negative impact, probably not. But let me check into that, because even if there's a negative impact, we can still potentially notify them of the project.
Can you two get together if there's further discussion that we need to have?
Sure.
Okay, terrific. Normally, I neglected to mention, we normally require 3-minute limit on public input, but it seems like we solved the problem during this one, so maybe we saved some time overall.
I'm
Thank you
sure
very
she
much.
kept her 3 minutes. I went over on mine, so sorry.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all I have on the list of public input. Is there anyone that missed the list? Okay. Correspondence. We have a letter from your boat club, and we received the second letter today from your boat club, and it has to do with the no wake, having a no wake zone in the East River. Linda, when we brought this up at the last meeting, you said that there was work on this underway. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you give us a status report?
I did some checking into this. It is we could put no wake zone markers on the wood pilings that we have in the river. That would be fine. Otherwise, we would have to do drop-in ones that we would have to purchase and then annually pay the million barging or somebody else like that to put in. The county or the DNR puts a base for this we put in. As far as the protection, that would fall to the county sheriff, and they do not have a on-the-water officer, but their suggestion was to make sure that anybody that had a complaint get a boat license number, boat information, and all that.
That's what it used to have.
So we'll put the two on the island that we can put in.
Those are, I'm sorry, the pilings are,
I'm sorry. If we put them in the water, in the beginning, we would have to, like I said, purchasing, we'd have to, we would have no capability of showing them every year.
and those pilings by your boat club, by the Sandy Bear Marina?
They pretty much go up to.
All the way up the river.
Yeah.
Oh, all the way up the river, okay, that's fine. Because there was a resident down off of Lake Avenue that had also complained about a wake problem. So that could take care of that as well.
It's a dozen pages
Yeah, okay.
on high impact weekends.
I think they partnered with the conservation agent.
It just helped with the problem.
Do you have a comment?
No, I'm just, so is this the city's issue because the city owns the property on either side of the water there?
Well, the city owns the highway.
Yeah, we own the pilings, we can decide if we can put on them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, as far as controlling waterways, no, it's not really our issue.
That was kind of my question about what.
I think it's a federal waterway.
The Coast Guard generally is
Yeah.
responsible for waterways, except for Vermillion, the county controls.
Okay. I talk to Todd periodically anyway, so, but
And I
we
did
do
update him
officially
already.
get back. Okay, you did that? Thank you very much, Linda, that's good. Okay, any further correspondence? Then we come to 5.0, and to do 5.0, we'll need to move 8.2 up to that same point, and that's the accepting the Brooke Anderson City Council resignation. So we're going to move 8.2 up, and 8.12, I'm sorry.
And 3.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, let me clarify. 8.12 and 8.13 will both have to be moved up. So if we go to 8.12, there is a letter. From Brooke, Linda, do you want to read this, or essentially it says that Brooke Anderson is resigning her position on the Tower City Council effective May 9th. Do you feel you need to read the whole letter? Okay. And is there a motion to accept?
Make that motion.
Support.
Any further discussion?
I don't know if we send her a thank you letter. Okay. Sure.
Can we emphasize in the letter, thanking her for her willingness to participate in the board of review?
Yes.
And I offered to buy her a cup of coffee and a cookie. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mine was an aye, so it's unanimous. So 8.13, there's a resolution 2019-006, resolution accepting resignation and declaring the vacancy. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, you want to sign this afterwards, Linda, or do you want to send it over?
Last time, you can sign it after.
Okay,
I have a clean copy.
okay. Excellent. Then as I understand it, there are 4 applications.
5.
5, there were 4
There are
an
5.
hour ago. Okay, what's the fifth one?
It's Cynthia Swayze.
Oh, it's not listed.
Yeah, we have these off for the next meeting.
Okay. Okay. I'm unaware of that one, but
Yeah, I'll do the applications. Yeah, we have to do that next month.
What's the application period is no. Oh, okay.
I think because this was a big article in both city newspapers, I think it was pretty well known around town that those 2 positions were open. I would like to make a motion one at a time for these 2 council positions at this time. And to fill the first position, I would like to nominate Mary Shedd.
Can we see the applications?
Yes.
Or do you want to,
The reason that I want to do this is that this council is really hampered, having only 3 individuals on the council. First of all, we have to be careful about not meeting each other outside of council chambers.
Just stand on that board.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would say that Marlon needs a second, his motion to have a discussion, so you'll make that motion since you,
Or do you want to keep it 5 for a second?
you know,
If we-
what would you like
We
to
don't have
do?
any other commission meetings until after our next meeting,
When would the swearing in, I'm sorry.
the 28th.
I'm not.
Okay. We could,
So,
theoretically, we could appoint tonight, or we could wait until the next meeting.
Personally, my preference is that we appoint tonight from the 5 that we have, and that we seat them tonight. There's so many things on this agenda that really require a full city council to review them. I think that we're much better off having a full, complete city council to be able to do the business of the council.
That's something we're okay doing, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any, certain things about posting or any, putting things in newspaper or anything like that. And I think certainly if the council feels comfortable, you can appoint someone to make it. Or you can wait and take that to the council and
There is nothing in the city charter or the ordinance, and I also have an email from the League of Minnesota Cities, which our city attorney has gotten a copy of, stating that posting in a newspaper is not required.
are we open for more discussion right now? Is that-
Yeah,
We should
have a second, and then we can have discussion and then a vote.
Did you make the motion?
I will, you want me to, yeah, I'll make a motion that way, to support, also, just so we can have the discussion, we should do it.
So my concern is that we haven't been given a chance to review the applications that were submitted. And now there's 5 people who have applied for these positions, and I'm not familiar with each of their strengths. And, I am on a couple just because of outside, but, and I want to get our council completed and I want to move forward, and absolutely, but I guess that's just my concern, is that I don't have any other information or anything.
So, what is this on, options on this, so, if we were to, I kind of get what Rachel saying that, if we were to, in the next 2 weeks, we would just be looking at these 5 instead of throwing that out there, we could do that, so at least we're not going out looking for more candidates, but I think what Rachel's concern is that she doesn't really know who she's voting for. Maybe she knows some of the participants, and I guess I don't know the one down myself, all that, so, I mean, it's just,
We can do that. So I'm just kind of caught between the 2 options. One is, yes, I do want to get our council
I
completed,
agree with that part.
move forward and get going, but I also want to give anyone who's applied due diligence and being able to make their decision.
I would like to give Rachel the opportunity to do what she feels is necessary, that, I feel that way, and I think it's only 2 weeks. So, I agree with you 100% that we need to get somebody on it, because if one of us had gotten sick or something, then we would not have had a council, so.
As do I.
Yeah. trying to,
Okay.
and I feel it seems like Rachel's very, it's a big concern for her, and I think it's something that, you know, believe me, I soon get the trouble thing here too.
I
so.
understand your concern.
I'm just trying to be fair-minded to,
Yeah.
that one piece of pride to show that we've had a good process.
So we give you the opportunity to maybe speak to, you have phone number for them? Okay. So then,
But I see the want to move things forward and that as well. So I guess I don't know what the proper procedure here is. You know, because my hope is that I get to review the applications and, you know, understand people's backgrounds so that they can use that to make a good decision. Which, you know, I think probably everybody, these folks would be.
have you talked to each of these Orland?
I have,
Okay.
except for the number 5. And her name again?
Cynthia Spicer.
So we could, at the next meeting, vote on this if we.
Spell the last name.
No, please.
SPICEA.
Is she in the chambers today? Right? Oh, there you are. Okay, hi.
I have to stand up and give a little speech.
Weeks ago.
Didn't know that, but now I do.
I'm the chicken person.
You know, for me, a couple of weeks, they're gonna be the, but these will be the 5 candidates we'll choose from and go from there. I feel that would be the one. And Rachel will feel more comfortable about how she feels, and I'd like to probably at times, anyway, what do you prefer to be called?
Cindy.
Cindy, okay. So then, unless you want to give a speech.
And so my question surrounding that would be, what are we delaying as far as, you know, what are we?
Nothing will have to be done, just a matter of,
And then the night we choose the new city council members, they're able to be seated that night, get rolling right away, so it would be top of the agenda, and they would, okay?
yes.
Okay,
So that meeting, just because we was kind of talking dance around it, it would normally be Memorial Day, so it'll be Tuesday.
so it will be the 28th?
Yep. You can put that in for yourself.
Okay. Okay, so I will then withdraw, and because it's obvious where you stand and where
Yeah, I
you
think
stand.
it'd be,
When I made this, the decision to make this resolution or this motion tonight, I didn't realize that there was one more. I called it about 4 o'clock and we only had 4, so I'm sorry about this, Cindy, and I'm sorry I didn't put face and name together.
No, that's fine.
You're behind Ron, so.
And I just want to say that I'm not trying to hold things up or complicate the process. I just want to have all the information before.
Okay, so
Make a copy.
then, just to make things clear, there are 5 candidates, and they're Dick Larmont, Mary Shedd, Josh Zika, Sheldon Yarley. I never know if you're pronouncing your name. Marla. And Cindy Spicer. Okay, so those are the 5 candidates.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we could have, we could do it again.
Okay, reports from officers, engineers, commissions, and committees. I have Jeremy standing by to ask some questions regarding.
I was going to say, Earl, I talked to Jeremy today, and he didn't really feel the need that we needed it. He had his 2 questions answered. You certainly can call him, but I can let you know what we discussed at the same time. It's up to you.
I almost feel like I have to call him because he's standing by. Jeremy. Okay, he'll call me back. Okay, we'll table 6.1 and go directly into SCH Engineering. And Matt, if you want to report on your conversation with Jeremy, that's fine.
Sure, he had two kind of outstanding questions. One was related to the development agreement and the extension of it, and Linda answered his question, I believe, last Friday or Thursday. So that was the first thing he was looking for, and then he was looking for an update on the plat, our plat, not his plat. So I talked to him, and basically, not a lot has changed. We have the Andy and I prepared an easement for the DNR at their request. It got rejected because they can't allow outside easements, and so it's sitting at the Attorney General's office for the last couple of weeks now. So we are awaiting the Attorney General to send us an easement for review and execution.
Real quick update, I did get an email from them today saying we should have something this week, hopefully, so.
Okay.
We'll see, but
So that's good.
we're waiting on them, they have to use their own form, so that's kind of what happened. Their own form for these easements.
And then secondly would be the lien releases. We provided information a month and a half or so ago, and I understand Linda provided some drawing updates about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. I have not been in contact with the lenders, but I understand that one is very close. And then as far as the city boundary, Linda was in contact with the state, and they were requesting the original official resolution from a couple years ago now on that. And so I don't remember when it was Josh coming in to help.
Yeah, tomorrow he's gonna come by and sign. I can read you that fresh one.
Okay, so that's where that is at. Otherwise, Jeremy talked with the county, and they are fully aware that the plat is sitting on my desk waiting for those three things, and then it'll go in, but every other issue has been addressed. So the CIC plat can't really get approved, obviously, until our plat is done. So the county advised Jeremy to just hold off on submittal of that until ours is complete. I did talk to Jeremy today and asked about his plat. He's indicated there was probably still a couple of weeks of work for them to be ready to submit anything. And so the discussion was maybe it would be more appropriate to go to planning and zoning first, since ultimately the city approves the plat. So that was one discussion, is he might get it ready and submit it to planning and zoning for their review, preliminary review, and then it would go to county for the county's review, but ultimately the city, as you know, would approve the plat. So we'll have city signature on it. So that's kind of the direction I think we're gonna go right now.
When you refer to his plat, you're talking about the CIC?
The CSE plat, yeah. So he's got the legal documentation. Sounds like the drawing piece of it is not there yet. So.
Do you have an estimate of time, the age-old question, of when all of this will be complete?
I don't know on the CIC plat, because I'm not working on that. I don't know where they're at and how long it's going to take them to complete it. There will still be a county review, which will be, I'm sure, a minimum of 30 days, just based on county. I think they have up to 60 to actually do it, but I'd say you're not going to see it prior to 30 days. And then you have your own planning and zoning schedules that you'll have to meet as well. As far as our plat, if we can get stuff from the DNR this week, we can sign it this week. If we can get stuff from the lenders, we could sign it this week. Then it would just be a matter of how quickly the state gets back to Linda. As soon as I have those three documents, we run the plat to the county board.
So you get all that to the city, and all planning, zoning, meeting, committee, to approve this, and then it goes to the county.
Yep, and I think the other point Jeremy would make if he was on the call would be to just remind that whatever the dates are in the development agreement, they need to reflect the plating process, our plating process, which is outside his control right now. So, and I think we're, excuse me, aware of that. That's kind of the townhome development. So from our report, jumping over, we skipped number one, but the force main issue out at the campground. We got a response from our contractor. Andy, Linda, and I are having a meeting tomorrow afternoon to discuss our next steps. Pine Street reconstruction, we've talked a little bit about that tonight, but we are finishing up design here this month. Talked to Linda here a few times, and the city, it sounds like, is desiring to hold off on any construction until after July 8th for a number of different events that are going on down there. So I'll be submitting that for the state review here soon, and then getting bidding documents ready. That would be a mid-July start on that. The Trails project, the Trails project is ongoing. I sent you an email, Linda, about the surface color. We kind of already had picked one, but I want to review it one more time with you quickly because there might be a slightly better option. I understand there were some questions about the silt fence and the yellow floating silt curtain. Both of those are erosion control measures that we put in, so we have to pull a state permit. And as part of our permit, we have to discuss what we're going to do to prevent erosion, specifically getting into the river. On the first phase of the harbor, we actually got a fine from the PCA for not having the yellow floating stuff in there in the appropriate amount of time. This time we made sure it was in there ahead of time, so they will be coming in, I think, tomorrow and start grading out and putting class 5 and tucking through the trail. So that's why it is there. It's an erosion control thing related to our state permit that we have. The Trailhead project, we had a meeting with all of the agencies down in our Duluth office, the DNR Corps and SWCD. We walked through our options. We got some good feedback from them, and we have kind of finalized a layout for that. And so I'm going to be working on getting you some cost estimates, just so you know. Obviously, we have a fixed amount of funding from the LCCMR, but just so you know where the project is at, etc. City tower signs, Lynn provided me the resolution. I need to get back to MnDOT now and pull the permit for the sign on the west side of town or south side of town, because it's now going to move into City of Tower land. And so now that I have the resolution, I will do that. Tower Airport, there's not really any big updates there. I'm not going to read through all of those. Lampa Manufacturing, I know that's an agenda item 8.2, so we can talk more about it there, but we were hoping to have a move-in of this week. Although I was up there today and did not like a bunch of those items got completed. And the capital improvement plan, just a reminder, Linda, we had a meeting, of course, with you and your maintenance staff. They were going to review the drawings we had put together and get us any comments back, so I'm on hold on finishing that until I get any other comments back. So if you just reach out and see if they have anything, otherwise we could get that ready and get ready for delivery to the council.
Is that it, Matt?
That's all I have. That's your question.
Jeremy just texted me and said he's calling back.
Okay.
So is there a readout function here?
I'm not sure, I'm not on that one. He's not now.
And the final plat, we have to have a public hearing, and there are all in already, is there anything that's just, I don't think we do, but
And we did have planning and zoning.
I don't think it's got
Well,
it.
I don't know.
It's just a plat, so it's not, yeah.
But the main plat, the council already approved that. It's only, they're only waiting for those changes on it.
So I'll just be reapproved.
Only that CIC plat is anybody has to look at.
I'm gonna get that.
So we-
Yeah, hi Jeremy. It's Tower City Council. Matt Golf, SCH, just gave his engineer's report. He said that he spoke to you today, that you had a couple of questions that they seem to be able to answer. Are you, do you have any further questions, or are you satisfied with your discussion with?
No, I'm good with what Matt said. You guys gave me an update on the plat status, which was the main thing I was waiting for. And so I think we're good there. You know, they've got some things that they're finishing up, but he was going to keep me apprised of it. So.
Okay. So that's, and then there's a couple of things left to do with the CIC.
Well, the CIP is what's going in sort of on the, on the heels of the flat, is our overlay on that flat. So we talked a little bit about, where to submit that, and really more, I'll say it's a city thing more than a county thing. The county largely is really recording and reviewing for, making sure the real description connects and conforms, which with the CIP overlay is going to be relatively simple because it's, unit whatever of what the city's recording now, right? So it shouldn't be an issue on the CIP overlay at the county level. Once the plat's, approved or at least close to approved, we can start getting the P&Z at the city. I don't know if it's a P&Z hearing or if it's just council hearing or if it's just a P&Z hearing to approve it before it can be recorded at the county, but that would be the question I would have at the city level.
Did you say it was both?
It'd be a quick approval from P and Z because we already know those plots are going in there.
Okay.
As soon as it's
And then the
done,
city has to
we
make a
have to
final.
get that to us so that we
Okay.
can get it on our agenda.
So Jeremy, you heard both Steve and Linda?
I think so, just P&Z is what I heard.
And then the city has to approve that.
And the city council as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so
it's both, okay, both, got it, okay.
quick approval from P&Z. I emphasize the word quick.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it goes to the city council.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you for stepping out of your
Yeah.
meeting to take this
Yeah,
call.
you got it.
Okay.
No, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Great. Matt, was that the end of your report? Any questions for Matt on SCA? Okay. 6.3 ambulance director report.
Nothing special, just chugging right along as usual, so unless you have any questions, all the information's right there.
How does it run compared to last year?
Well, I could add those up. You could, the light blue is this year, the dark blue is last year. So you can see, and then right above that, you can see 18, and then underneath that 19 on the bottom of the graph.
Oh, I see, okay,
So,
I got you.
We were at 135 last year.
Yeah.
The months were a little higher and some months a little less.
yeah, April started off really busy, and then the last week of April was nice.
Okay. Any questions, any further questions to Steve? Okay, the fire chief report, Steve?
Nothing too special there. We did have a serious rescue EMS assist. Somebody fell up on the roof and broke their leg, so we assisted with that. And then we did have a water supply and brush burn training, although it started raining, so the brush burn part didn't go too well. But we're going to do some more burning. But and then we're doing a second training with the ambulance. We're doing the sedan mine. So we had that new, which we never had before, and it was kind of time to get that new rescue dummy. So we're going to be doing a rescue in the, we're going to be doing a rescue down in the mine. We do that every few years because it's very difficult. If somebody were to actually go down, it's very time consuming and difficult to get an actual person up there. It's it makes a little people nervous when you're using a real person and to get them up some of these areas. So that's why we kind of decided to have a.
Everyone's bid, does that fit in that?
It does not.
It does, I figured.
It's not. So it's a manual thing where you have to take the equipment down there. You're going to be carrying them out of there either on a backboard, which doesn't really fit in the elevator either. You have to stand the person up. You have to put them into the train laying down like that. So it's really unnerving, but we do try and do it every 2 to 3 years, just so that people realize how complicated it is. and of course, we'll be working with the mine staff as well, so. We've got permission.
I'll do my best not to fall into that situation. Any questions to Steve for the fire chief?
What does a PT1 mean?
Pumper tender.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a dual purpose truck, it's an engine and a tender.
Okay. And 6.5, we have a police report.
I have nothing to report.
So,
I assume Dan forwarded the report to you?
His report is here, Dan is on vacation right now.
That's correct.
The two things he did ask me to highlight were the new texting, or excuse me, hands-free driving law. I think that's going to come out August 1st. Is it?
August 1st, yes.
Just get everybody thinking about that. If you don't already have Bluetooth, buy a new car, or whatever you want to do. And then also what he put on his report here about the move over. There was another incident, I think in southern Minnesota, where somebody, an officer was hurt because people failed to move over. So he just asked me to highlight those two things.
both good points.
I do know he's mentioned to the, Linda and myself and the police commission members about the future of replacing the vehicle. Ultimately, it's up to the city to do that in the budget part, but, you're not gonna be able to get a vehicle every 5-ish years or so at only saving $5,000 a year. You're gonna have to probably look at bumping that up because the vehicles have gotten more expensive. So now you're looking at probably $6,000 or $7,000 a year you would need to set aside. So we don't, he just asked if we would kind of mention that.
I guess, the only thing I would add to that is that I know that the Markham Motel has probably saved a couple of DWIs because people have gotten sick in the rooms or on the sidewalk outside rather than in their car on the road. So that I can attest to. And our cleaning lady would be much more explicit. Power Economic Development Authority.
They had their meeting on the 2nd of May, and then Terry's minutes are in your packet. I think their key items are talking about the possible disc golf course, and the trail for a brochure for all-encompassing trails, and then the accommodation grant, which is also on the agenda later on. They brought that up.
Could I speak to that?
Oh, yeah, I was just looking for your review. Yes, I was going to ask if you had anything to add.
Well, we worked on the broadband. That was a basic thing that we needed. And Tita had some questions. They've been answered. And Tita is in favor of signing that contract and going forward with the broadband. We have looked for hotspots in the area. It sounds like Sedan might have one. We have to get all this stuff approved. Tower, we're having a little more trouble. We have the Civic Center, but we've asked several businesses downtown, and none of them have gotten back to us where we could put a hotspot in and have those computers, because we're getting 25 laptops. We use Sedan, or Greenwood wants one, and Sedan is going to want a few, and Tower's going to have some. And we're planning on maybe setting up an area for kids for homework, after school, elderly, come in, check it out. Since there's no library here for them to use computers, this might be a good way to do it. And there's TDEP could be approving all these things coming up, or the council could approve them, or a steering committee of the people that have been involved in this. TITA is kind of swinging towards letting the steering committee do it. I believe that would be best. I'm on the steering committee and TITA, so And I feel strongly that the steering committee can meet anytime, and they can, you know, if something comes up, they can make the approval. It would all go to the council, but the initial should go to steering committee, you know, in my opinion. And Tina's opinion.
I'd understood that, that having the decision-making at the steering committee level was good because they can meet on relatively short notice and...
Plus, we've been you know, we're aware of what's going on, and you know, the grant is for a large sum of money, and we know what can be used for, you know, because it can't be used for everything, but it can be used for a lot of things.
Sure.
And we know what they are, and we've got all that regulations down. We've got a good leader, so, you know, I feel comfortable with saying.
I also heard that there were one or two vacant buildings that could work.
Right,
close
I
to Main Street.
contacted the owners of some of them, and none of them have gotten back to me.
Okay.
So I was going to send them another message.
Make another round.
Linda gave me phone numbers for some of them,
Sure.
and you know, I contact them. So Ely owns the old Wright building, and it's empty, and we can lease it. I told him all these things, but he's never gotten back to me.
Which is the right building?
The Wright building's that one right on the, just off Main Street. That faces,
Oh,
yeah.
Mhm.
I call it the Wright building because they owned it.
Yeah, okay, that's the one that Mark.
That's the way we do things. I have no addresses, but that's where we are right now.
Okay.
And Tower's going to have to get a site, and we're working on it through TIDA. You know, we're doing it that way.
How would you pay for that lease, Richard, was that?
That's part of the grant money.
Oh, it is?
First year, the first grant we can use for some for that.
Okay.
After that,
Yeah.
we're on our own.
You have to figure out how to...
But we're hoping that, like in Sedan, they've got it for free. They can use their fire hall, or one of the churches said that their basement is empty, but there might be some problems with the state on that one because they're meeting in a church, even though there's nothing being done, but it's some of the other people there said that there's been problems, some of the other communities. See, Laurentian and Aurora area and this area are getting the grant together. That's why it was $75,000. And we're gonna work together on some of the things, but the steering committee is just going to be for this area, our steering committee. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Any other comments or reporting on PETA? Then we'll move on to 6.7, the Airport Commission report. Anything, John?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Then we'll move on to 6.8, the Treasurer's report.
Yep, the report in your packet has about April 30th. The current cash position and our expenditure and attachments, which have our actuals and budgets. Do you have any questions?
Okay. So on the first page, the CDs and savings, balances and so on, are they as of April 30th, 2019, or is that when the report was done?
That is as of.
As of, okay. Good, so that's the, so our bank statement balance right now is 48,861. Not right now, but as of April 30th. Okay. And that was after those transfers were made, that we approved
Yes,
2 meetings ago.
yes.
Okay. Then, under CD or in savings or under bank statement balance, there's also the insurance settlement for the building. Is that, where is that $140,000? So what,
It'll be on the left-hand side, but I believe it's account number 55.
on the left side of that first page, or?
Yes.
Okay.
1955.
Yeah.
Okay, so does that mean that the $273,143.41 total cash is actually $140,000 more, or is that $140,000 in that 273? Okay. So roughly 313,143.
460.
Yeah.
114.
41, yeah, that's right.
Any of these departments that are, any of them that we spent more on, or like quality or anything for the, budget or anything like that?
No, not yet, except for the council, that's the one we've gone over so far.
Just a quick comment, the mine are getting upside down, so. So are there any questions? Was I the only one that walked out with?
No.
No. Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think it's portrait one.
So are there any cash crunch periods that we're looking at in the next month or two?
Not in the next 3 days.
Rachel, do you have any questions? And Steve? Well, it's good. I'm pleased that we're having a financial report at the first meeting of each month now. I personally would prefer if I could get the report a little bit earlier so I could look through it before the meeting and study it. I think probably everyone would feel
It would be helpful,
yeah.
Is it cool? I see that.
Okay. No further questions regarding the treasurer's report? Okay, 6.9, Hoodoo Point Manager's Report.
Are they in the doorway? I can't tell you who's standing there. The only thing I know that they did ask was that the timber dig under retraction, they got a few irate folks down there due to an error in the paper. And what it said was that we replaced the furnace for $13,000. And one guy wanted to see the gold furnace, and one wanted to see the gold air that the furnace put out at cost. The cost of the furnace was actually $3,500 at the top of the hole. The full price for 3 different repairs is what was published. It should have been this amount right here. Most people calmed down. We did get a few calls up here.
We did
Okay, last week.
paper. Yeah.
I don't think anybody noticed it. They only noticed the mistake, of course. So, yeah, that caused, but just to clear it up, we did not buy a furnace for $13,000. No. There were a few people. Yeah.
Okay. She bought a furnace from outside town?
No one in town said, oh, hoping it, but
Yeah. That's right.
they just buy what do.
Yeah.
We'll deliver it.
Is there a motion to accept the reports from officers, engineers, commissions, and committees?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Unfinished business, grievance committee, authority.
So after our meeting on April 8th, we had asked that I reach out to outside legal counsel to look into some of the disagreements that there were surrounding the grievance process that took place. I reached out to Vermillion Law. They are focusing more on real estate law now, and they directed me to Colosimo, and I got in touch with Mitch Brunfelt, who would be able to help us with this matter. My concern is the cost associated with that. I did reach out to the League of Minnesota Cities to see if they could offer us anything in guidance. They did respond to me just today with what, and at the front of the email they say that we would need to review what they state in that email with legal counsel, and that they could only make general statements but not make legal advice surrounding our questions about the grievance procedure that occurred. So, where we are is Mr. Brunfelt was willing to help us or take this on. His fee is $200 an hour, and so my concern before we accepted any services that we vote as a council to do so, and I don't know if we can set a limit, because when we look at our treasurer's report where we are in legal services, we've gone through most of our budget for the year. So that's where I'm at.
So if you provided a bunch of questions to the league first, they would do a generic or they could, and then I know they always follow up with talk to your local attorney, but at least you'd have some idea maybe as to what you'd want to ask Mitch at some point then. You know.
Right, and I provided the same questions, trying to be objective to Mitch. He has that information, but he's not opened the case.
Okay,
yet.
but he has them available.
He has that available, and he just responded with what his fee would be, and that he'd be willing to work with us. And I sent essentially the same information to the league.
Okay, so they haven't responded to your questions?
They did respond to that question, but they recommended before we act on it that we seek legal counsel. So now I feel like.
So now you can send it to the league and so we can send stuff to the league first and then
But because their service is being free.
Yeah,
I
right.
just wanted to see if they could help us out with anything otherwise, but. So I think at this point we need to decide if we want to pay for those services to look into this further, maybe set some parameters as far as how much we're willing to spend. Because in his reply he said what might be included is needing to have some conversations with people about what happened, and so that's going to take up more of his time, and time is money now.
Can you say a few more words about exactly what this investigation entails?
Sure. So the investigation is surrounding the response to the grievance that was filed by City Employees Union and how the grievance was resolved. And there was some question about how the meeting was posted. The presence of the three grievance committee members when the remedy was created and sent back to the union and accepted. If the grievance committee has combined the city to that remedy, is essentially the question that's being asked. Where we have some issues is that we don't have a grievance policy or procedure for how to respond to these concerns, and so we didn't have that to help guide us through this process, but that's being worked on.
Well, this brings to the question, I was just saying that it would be good to have a full council making those decisions, I think, so, yeah.
The decisions as far as procedure?
Oh, no, I mean, just when we're deciding what we're gonna spend and what we're,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So the grievance remedy included remedy that was limiting the power of the council, the entire council, also correct. So in other words, would it be appropriate for the entire council to review this matter? I'm looking at our city attorney.
I mean, as far as, certainly the council can look at this matter. I mean, you don't have to seek outside, advice if that's, really
Well,
or don't want. I mean, certainly you can make your decision if you want on your own.
If we can do this in-house, I think it makes much more sense, and not have to spend more legal dollars to resolve this.
So how do you make house as far as?
When we have an entire city council, and if I need to recuse myself for some portion of it, I will do that.
Okay.
If that's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the council as far as, again, on how you want to do that. Certainly if you think you need outside counsel, you're going to have to decide at that point, if you think you can resolve it on your own, certainly you can do that. Or come up with a decision on our own.
So with where we're at, the remedy has been provided to the union, it's accepted, and so I think from the union side of things that it's resolved, that the issue's been addressed. And so I'm not sure what we can do as a council if we're concerned about any portion of that remedy.
That's where
Does that
I think
make
you would
sense?
need legal counsel there on that one, so.
Okay.
We don't want to be doing something.
Any of the committees ultimately report back to the city council, and the city council then would need to decide, help me if I'm wrong here, Andy, but the city council would need to decide whether something can be resolved within the city council itself, or whether we need to go outside. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, again, the normal protocol is yes, a committee would, make a recommendation and then the council would approve that. Now, again, I don't know based on, when there's a contract and how that, all fits together. But, certainly the council can, you're the decision maker, so you can do whatever you want. You can disregard what attorneys say or counsel, I mean, it's your decision. But I guess the question is, do you have the knowledge and expertise to be able to answer that question? And that's the, if it means spending a little bit more money, maybe it just means doing that and getting this done and moving forward, rather than, but I'm not saying if the council can do that, then certainly we can do that.
But perhaps tabling this issue until we have a full 5-member council makes
I
sense.
think that's appropriate there.
So I welcome a motion.
So I'll move to table review of the grievance committee authority until we have full council. So we can have a show agenda for May 28th.
Is there support?
I support that.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7.2, grievance committee procedures. Is this something that, have you had a chance to review this?
I've just read it.
These are the same ones you've had a few times now. Would you be able to tell us by the 28th?
I could certainly review it, if that's something you want me to do, and give you some
I
feedback.
think that's
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We could, we might honor that.
Sure. And where do these come from?
Obviously, we don't.
I mean, are they coming from here again, so I...
They came from the grievance committee. We took generic, normal steps and just adapted it for ours, because there are none and there are no rules that you have to have them, except for you have to adhere to timelines. That's the only requirement, and that is also part of what's in their contract. So we wanted to have a standard, just
Don't follow.
So we table this until the 28th as well.
Well, I would
Motion to that.
I'll move to table grievance committee procedures till the 20th.
I have legal counsel, we want to make a comment.
He's already got it.
Oh, you know.
Okay. Further discussion, was that
I'll
support?
second, yeah.
Okay, further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Trailhead, Chusk, or kiosk?
Yeah, well, I went and looked at it, it's pretty rough. I think it would be, I think it should be removed, but keeping the power available for a future little, like we have in Virginia Park or something right now. Just a basic structure with a roof for people to go down and throw, you can have a couple picnic tables, and it's actually kind of a nice little corner there for bikers and everybody, so, but as far as the building goes, it's not worth selling, so.
It needs to be upgraded. It needs to be upgraded.
So that could be a nice cute little place down there for, biking's getting bigger and bigger, and the ATV thing, so.
So it's a recommendation to demolish and hold space for eventual rebuilding?
The flat itself is really in good shape, so we could just, that's what I would say.
Is that a motion?
I would make that a motion to have.
I'll support that.
Any,
not as far as like when it comes to the rebuilding. Maybe check with the trails people that
Yeah.
the snowmobile people to see. My only thought was if it does get rebuilt, they might have a better spot for it where it won't be, especially when it comes to snowmobiles, having a bunch of them parked right there with the new sidewalk and everything. There may be a little bit better spot to go for it in the future if the city rebuilds it.
I was just thinking like you just a little pavilion there, so it's just that quick and bunch of, so nothing extravagant. So anyway,
okay, so.
make that motion to remove,
And preserve the power, that's what I had. Remove the
and
structure.
preserve the power on the pole, just however they would disconnect it, but keep it available, so.
Okay. And support? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Mine was aye, so it's, 7.4, ambulance director rate change.
I had brought this to you once before, and then we got kind of sidetracked with some other things, and now I'm back, and you had asked me for some additional data. So I reached out to, I don't know, probably about 50 cities, and I got these folks to respond to me. It was moving from 18 to 2 per tower.
From 18 to 2000. It's really all over the board, isn't it?
It is.
It's completely random and just totally. These were ones that she found that people, I guess, got back to her with that were kind of in the range, but I mean, it's totally random. There's no rhyme or reason.
These are probably based on other places, a little bit.
There's really there's no formula that you can look at any of it and apply to any of them. It's just totally.
There's one city that's paying for half or the same price for 1/5 of the runs, it's just. I asked a couple other questions relating to the AP stuff, just to let us know, I don't think I got any two of the same answer.
Does this come from the ambulance?
Yes.
And when does it take effect?
I would say June 1st.
Okay, and we're talking about $2,400 for the year?
Correct.
So the 1,800, okay, 1,800 goes up to 2,000, okay. Is there a motion?
I move to,
I guess I'll second it for discussion.
Further discussion?
That's something that, based on running numbers that, see what we can do. Is there, for some reason, really start dropping, are we able to drop that number? That's my concern, is just about,
If we see the ones start to trend down and it's where it's not working.
not something that the fellow would want to.
No, but
I feel we have to have the
it's
ability
it's the
to.
same with everything. If there's a major change in trends, you'd have to adjust. You'd have to.
We would just make
You
that,
can't.
it's not up to, that's up to us.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
New business, Lindsay Enterprises pay us by 10.
Yes, sir, the pay estimate for the recent amount of work for $21,000. And this also does reduce their retaining fee to 5%.
Keeps it at 5%.
Keeps it at 5%.
They requested
to reduce
to reduce it, and we said, there's about $100,000 left on the contract for, I guess, used to make sure this thing is done.
That's the next item, so we can talk about that. So you're good with that?
Yeah, it's primarily for mechanical, electrical items, which are there and operating.
I'll make that a motion.
support?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Kita Manufacturing Building Project, 8.2. So there's no,
Are you reporting, Dale?
okay.
Want to stand?
Sure. I did that.
I have some stuff to hand out to the council also.
First off, it's singing voice, so you'll be heard.
First off, I just want to report to the council that Atlanta is very frustrated. And our lease said that we were supposed to be on October 1st of 2018. And also in the lease, it says that we have the right to cancel the lease within 90 days if we're not in. Moving past that. So we can pull out any time we want. We really don't want, we want to be in. So my frustration kind of boiled over last week. I sent a letter to the council. I believe you all did it. It's just, one of the things was we had a walkthrough, a final walkthrough, probably 3-4 weeks ago, Matt, something like that. And the punch list that I finally got, I never received it, but I asked Linda, I was kind of surprised that we aren't, why aren't we automatically given updates on this? I mean, it's just, we have, and Linda said, no, you can have anything you want, you just have to ask for it. And I said, I've never heard of such. I made the mistake of saying, we're the client. She said, no, you're not the client. We're the client, this is the city's building, we'll make the decision. And that's just further irritating. I finally hung up on it. I got a letter from Linda Thursday afternoon, which I'm assuming you all got a copy of. And I'd like to go through that letter. So she said, first thing, the stainless steel wash sinks. The wash sinks in the shop are ridiculous. I'm not sure if SEH spec goes out or who. I've never seen anything like this on any manufacturing plant. So they said, give us an idea what you want. This is what we want. something in a manufacturing plant, you're going to get very dirty. And these guys, don't just guys, you shouldn't say just guys and gals, don't want to just wash their hands. They want to be able to get their scrub and get their arms down under the water. The little sinks that are in there are about this big around. They really belong in their place towels. But it's ridiculous. And then the thing that also Linda said is the stuff on the punch list didn't include the stuff that we brought up, which further irritated us. So why was I asked to come along on a final walkthrough if the things that Lampa brought up weren't put on the punch list? And so Linda said that punch list was only for Lindsay. Well, then why was there a published punch list for Lampa? Anybody have an answer for that?
Do you want me to respond one by one, or just let?
No, let me just go.
Okay, I'll let you go.
And then we come to the next one, which absolutely blew Daryl out of the water. Linda says the air exchangers in the welding room, the cost of an exterior system. Okay, now first off, when we started this, I gave SEH several brochures and said we wanted an outside air exchange system that was the up-to-date what everyone's using today. It takes the air out of the building, filters it, and puts it back into the building, eliminating the need for an air makeup unit. Now, I spent a lot of years in manufacturing worrying about employee occupational safety. I said one of our top objectives was keeping a very good air quality, better than what we have now. OSHA's already said we have fabulous quality. We want it better than what we have now, and I want it very quiet. And they said we wanted to target 76 decibels, and eventually we wanted to get down to 74. Now in Linda's email here, she says, well, first off, she said a mechanical engineer stated that we increased maintenance with the exterior units in cold weather. Oh, excuse me, let's skip something. The cost of the exterior system versus an interior system is higher, and the system would result in additional additions to the current HVAC system. That's not correct. I've talked with the system they put in is Donaldson. It's a very good system. This is a letter I got from the distributor for Donaldson. The system that we wanted is less money. The front page is the system we wanted. The back page is the system they put in. So they spent about, now this is all list. I don't know what was negotiated. This is list prices. The list on the system they put in would come in at about $50,000. What we wanted would come in at about $46,000, and he's throwing in a full $10,000. He admits that he's way over padding the ducting cost. So it would have been likely less than this. But now it's what really irritates us is that Lynn comes in for, is this Lynn or is this the city? This is going to be the city she's representing. She said she finds information that the operating decibel level of 80.5, actually Donaldson said 85 decibels. Now 85 decibels are additive. So if one unit's running at 85 decibels, you turn a second unit on, it's not 85 decibels, it's probably going to be 90, 95. I confirmed that with Donaldson today. You turn a third system on, it's going to be probably 95 or 100 decibels. It's illegal. OSHA, here's the thing on decibels. Now we're not even talking, OSHA requires, if you go to the second page, it says at the top highlighted there, workers, you have to, they require a weighted average noise level of 85 dBA. Now also what OSHA requires is that it's an additive weighted average noise level of 85 decibels. So if our noise level is 85, or let's say it's 95 or 100, and Linda says, well, they can wear ear protection. You can't use earbuds, not with a welding. You have to have full ear protection for this stuff. I know, I've done this. So how is the city here to tell us how we're supposed to take care of our employees? We don't want to expose our employees to this. This could, over 85 decibels, NIOSH, the National Institute for Occupational Safety, says that continued over 85 decibels causes permanent hearing damage. And now we're talking 85 decibels, we're talking ambient. This is without our other equipment running. That's just ambient, 8 hours a day. Now we start welding, and let's just say it's at 90 decibels. OSHA says you can spend 8 hours at 90 decibels a day. We're talking ambient. Now you add our welders in, that's additive, that pushes that up higher. Now you have a guy with a hammer striking steel, that's additive, that pushes that up. That's why OSHA requires additive, weighted average decibels. And we don't want to just be good enough. Apparently the city thinks it's okay to put our employees in a dangerous environment, or an environment that we're not satisfied with. We don't have this level today, so why should we go backwards in a new building? I mean, this really ticks us off. And then to find that the information that was provided by the city is not accurate. It's 85 decibels per unit. You've got 3 of them. It's additive. Not only that, it's in an all-steel enclosed room. I just, even Daryl was just saying, I can't believe the city's trying to tell us what we should do for the safety of our employees. So does the city going to tell us that we don't have to go for cleaner air either? Just keep it the minimum that's required? That's not what we want to do. Lampa wants to provide a very safe environment for their employees. We can't compete price-wise with the mines, but what we can do is provide a very good work environment. We can focus on their safety. We can focus on their eyesight, their hearing. We want to prevent slip and fall accidents, all of this stuff. But when the city starts telling us, well, that's good enough, that's really ticks us off. That's just not right. But the decision that they did, they put these in, yeah, they're the Cadillac, they're great quality. Turret is a fabulous brand, but they also make the exterior unit. Now the city also said they're not good in cold environment. When I talked to Donaldson, they said, no, I don't know where you got that from, they're fine. We use them all over Minnesota, never had a problem. So, but apparently the city knows better, because they say that they don't work in cold weather. Also, the city says that it puts more load on your HVAC system. That's not true either, because this system pumps the air, the warm air back in the system. It doesn't dump it outside. And that brings us to the next question. The paint system. I still have not been able to hear it run. How many decibels does that run at? How many CFM of heat, cubic feet per minute of heat, does that pump out of the building? Because that is not a recirculation system. That pumps it out, and then how many BTU of a heater is tied into that to pump back in? All that, thousands of square feet of air is being pumped out when it's 30 below. Now you've got to have a big propane heater to heat that air to replace it. That's what we wanted. We wanted a modern system that just recirculates that air back in. It's not lost. But that's not what we got, or not what we got. So obviously, whoever's running this, the city or the engineering firm or whomever, is not listening to what we asked for. We're irritated, and that came through in my memo. Then we were supposed to originally, I went back to the papers, we were originally supposed to move in August, then it was end of September. I agree with all that. And then they made us sign the lease in July that said we moved in October 1st. It's now May 13th, 14th, something like that. We're still not in. In Linda's letter representing the city, it says we could move in today. 13th. Where are we? I was told I'm not even supposed to be in the building. I couldn't have a key. That doesn't make us feel real good. When are we going to get in? You know what this is costing us? We can't even work hardly because we've been hiring more people because we were supposed to have been in last fall. I've got, Steve, you were over there this week. It's kind of tight in there, isn't it?
Extremely tight.
And it's dangerous. We had our first accident now in many, many, many years because it was so tight. An employee came walking through an aisle walkway with a thing of insulation, walked into a sharp piece of steel and cut his leg. Had to have stitches. We had to file that with workman's comp. We file every report. First accident because we still are in the building, but we're not in. We don't want to treat our employees that way. And I don't know why the city is forcing us to continue this. So we still have a move-in date today. Guess what? No keys. And this is from the city. I'd kind of like to know what the heck the city's going to do. And I'd like the city to address why they think they should tell us how to treat our employees. Right? I think that's ridiculous. I'd also like to find out what it's going to cost to run that air makeup unit for the paint system, which we also didn't want. Paint system's a great paint system. That's another thing. The paint system, they put in a very good system, but nobody asked us anything about it. We paint predominantly black, maybe 80% black. Why would you put in a paint booth that only has overhead lights? Anybody who knows anything about painting black would put a paint booth in with overhead lights and side lights. There's no side lights. I don't know who the heck ever thought that. I told Linda, I said, whoever did this, I don't think has ever done a commercial building or a manufacturing building. Why do we have to ask? Why doesn't the city consult us? Why aren't they getting back to us with every little thing that comes up? Why aren't we getting, I mentioned to Steve, when I did project management for years, I gave SAG reports, situation at a glance, so that they don't have to read pages and pages, they just have a page of bullet points. We should have been kept in that. So, you can probably tell I'm a little frustrated. I guarantee you, Daryl is just as frustrated. And he's actually angry, and he feels the city should be paying for some of this. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying something needs to be done. And I think telling us that we have to approach the city if we want information is the wrong way to do it. I've never heard of project management doing that. We might not be the client, but we are the primary stakeholder. And whenever you're doing project management, you always give updates to your primary stakeholder. Guess what? I don't know if we've ever had a formal update. So that's about all I have to say. I'd like the city to let us know when we're going to be in there. And we do have some thinking to do over this lease on the payments and when they kick in and everything. We are swamped right now. It's costing us money. Now we're having injuries because we're still in there. And I think the way the city has treated LAPA is horrible.
A couple of questions. You mentioned when you're talking about the decibel levels that this was in a steel encased. I don't remember the exact term you used.
The whole room is lined with steel, so sparks and stuff are not dangerous. You're not going to create a fire. The thing is, it might sound hard to get down. When I was in the cities, I was in a much, much larger manufacturing plant with much bigger equipment. And we started out at an ambient. Remember, ambient, that's your, that's your overall daily thing. These things would be running all day, so that's part of ambient. We had an ambient of 80 decibels. When I was done there, we had it at 74. If you get 84, 85 decibels or more, we are required by OSHA to give all of our employees annual hearing tests. Another expense. Obviously, the city thinks that's okay. We do not want to harm our employees' hearing. We do not want to harm our employees' breathing. We don't want them to end up with cancer or other illnesses because of environmental conditions. Something else we're doing, our paint booth, it's not required. We use respirators today, but we're going to an upgraded system that's generally only used when you're dealing with poisonous systems. We're going to a fully hooded paint thing with a pack, so it'll constantly flush fresh air through, because if you're going to absorb any hazardous chemicals or anything, it's generally going to be through the eyes. Respirator doesn't do any good. Does it require? No. But this is what Daryl wants to do for his employees. We also don't use standard welding helmets. We hired a new guy today. He came into this with his helmet, and I said, nope, can't use that. That's a $100 helmet that doesn't provide enough eye protection for you. We provide our employees with welding helmets that are top of the line. We use Miller helmets that provide much, much better protection for their eyes. So I mean, for the city to tell us how we should treat our employees, I think that just bugs the dickens out of us.
When I asked the question about the steel encased the walls, I hadn't thought about spark protection and that sort of fire protection. But I would assume that the sound then reverberates off of the steel at the hardware.
Very much so.
Okay. So that would be one of the issues. Is there anything like putting some sort of asbestos covering or anything like that?
Not asbestos.
Oh, I mean, what am I saying? What am I saying? Of course.
Everything costs. If you get a well shut up, you have to be careful. There are restrictions there. We will have well screens to protect eyes and stuff. But with the outside, the gentleman from Donaldson says, yes, the outside system is much quieter. We would also probably need to sound deaden the ducting, which we would do, just because that's really the only other area that can really contribute a lot of noise is the actual tin ducting.
Okay.
You just get sound deadening.
I have another question, but first of all, I'd like to suggest that we strike the word asbestos. I didn't really say that. I knew better. I used to work in near an asbestos plant in Norway. So my second question is, your move-in day was today. You got that last week. Expected move-in day. But you're not moving. I imagine you're moving all this heavy equipment yourself, right?
We're hiring. We missed our moving date. So now we've had to reschedule. And unless we want to pay double time and triple time on weekends, the earliest time they can move it. Well, I tell them, you guys can push out to that date. Why should I tell you when we schedule? You guys will just push out to that date. If we missed our last date, now it's the busiest moving time of the year. And so we're very likely going to have to do a weekend, which we're probably going to have to pay double and triple time. We pay triple time on Sunday, double time on Saturday. So you can imagine what Daryl's feeling is on that. I think we should pay for that.
In the church every Sunday, I hear. Okay, so then I guess my next question is, I'm sure that Matt Escape will come into this, perhaps Linda as well. But is there something in the contract that is there a penalty for delivery? I mean, typically there's a bonus for finishing early.
Linda said there was. And I talked to her and she said, we're negotiating right now. And I said, well, if there's a penalty in there, why are you negotiating? It's in the contract. Well, when I first got here, Matt was saying, yeah, the city could have decided to start charging them $250 a day, I think he said, in January. The city hasn't taken that action yet. And I said, what? Why? You've waited another 4 months and you could have been charging penalties all this time? I mean, I've gone out Thursdays and Fridays with no one around. And there's just nobody there. It's all locked up. No one being done at all. And I'm just stymied that the city didn't feel the need or the desire to start incurring the penalty that's in their contract.
Those are my questions for now. Rachel or Steve, do you have any further any questions? So Linda or Matt, do you want to respond?
Sure, I can do my best here. So obviously, I'm here representing SCH. I'm not the architect of record or the mechanical engineer, and we hired Otto Mackey out of Giving there for our mechanical design. And I know that you had a meeting with those two during the design phase, and I wasn't part of that meeting, so I can't speak for specifically for that. So first of all, I guess I would just say for those of you that are the new councilors, your previous councilor, previous mayor, and current staff, a long time ago saw the forest and had communicated with Lampa and saw the value of that business in this community and absolutely wanted to keep them here. Negotiated with Lampa, offered up the best lot that you have in all of your development, and took out a big loan in the name of the city to help that out. So just to make sure you have the background, the city has been a very good proponent of keeping the Lampas in tower. Obviously, Dale has hit on a number of communication issues that honestly, I will tell you, are primarily SCH communication issues. As much as he wants to maybe point the finger at Lampa, Ryan is our project
I'm not
manager.
pointing the finger at Lampa.
Sorry, Linda.
No, I was actually pointing the
council.
finger at the city.
But I'm just saying the city puts the responsibility on us. So as updates came in, if we were sending them to Linda, you know, we should have been sending them to Dale. And if that wasn't happening, again, that's on us. And I'm not gonna, I can't go back in time, but I'm not gonna put the blame on anyone else except us for that. A couple of things. You were referencing punch list. A punch list is, of course, items that are not finished per the existing contract. So a sink, we can absolutely change out, not a big deal. Air exchangers, if you want to change them out, you can. Those aren't punch list items though, those are contract change orders. So there's a reason those wouldn't have showed up on any kind of punch list, because they built what was designed. Still absolutely can change them, but just technical difference between what would show up on a punch list and what wouldn't. So like, for example, on the punch list, we still have to put the chimney in for your stove. I wasn't at the walkthrough, as I understood. They said they need the stove there placed on the floor, so they don't have to drill a hole in the ceiling once and in the right spot.
That wasn't said when I was there.
Okay, I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm just letting you know what I heard, but that the stove should be there placed so that we can run the flue up and cut one hole. So again, those are just differences between the two things. Again, so there was a meeting with our design team in Dale. I was not at it. I can't speak other than to say there's obviously been a miscommunication, right? The sink is something that I'm sure we selected that Dale never gave us a spec for. We put in something they don't like. It's a very cheap fix. I think I would advise the council to just do that. No one's saying that you can't do that. The air exchanger is slightly more complicated. Again, I'm not at the meeting, but I have my team telling me their handwritten notes say that we installed what was the pleasure or the request of the Lampas. I wasn't there. I can't say one way or the other. So obviously miscommunication. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just saying we didn't hear what you wanted. With that, so you have an internal system now that filters internal air and puts it right back in. So it does not go outside of the building at all. Correct. So the external one, and again, this is coming from mechanical. I'm not a mechanical engineer. That if you go to the external one, you're going to blow the hot air out of the building. You're going to have to make it up with new air and you're going to have to heat it and send it back in the building, being more energy consumption and more maintenance.
That's incorrect.
Okay, and I'm not going to argue because I don't know. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing on the design side versus what Dale's telling me tonight. I'm going to tell you I don't know the difference because I don't design air exchangers. As far as the decibels, I have no idea what the existing facility runs at for decibels. I can't tell you if we're increasing or decreasing what you're doing now. And we don't know what all three exchangers running right now is actually producing for decibels. Everything Dale has said is correct about it being progressive, but if you go to a decibel calculator and you typed in 380.5s, it's only going to equal about 87 or 88 when they're added together. That's just the air exchangers, as Dale said.
That's ambient.
That's just the air exchangers. So, other things, I think we definitely made an assumption that they're already wearing personal protective equipment, such as hearing protection. So if you're striking a hammer on steel in your existing shop, you're way over the 90. If you're going to strike it in the new shop, you're going to be way over a 90 regardless. Again, I think there was things lost in communication. I'm not saying anything.
We do require hearing protection, but to deal with the requirements that this would require full head muffs, which you do not use with a high-level weld system.
So again, what I'm saying is I don't know what what exists at now. The three were running the other day, and people are having a normal conversation in front of them. That was just the air exchangers without welding equipment and other things. But again, to really know what the decibel level is and whether it's above the OSHA limit, you have to go in there with a decibel meter and run things and turn it on.
I didn't say it's above the OSHA limit. I said it's
No,
close to the limit.
I know that, I'm not saying that you did, I'm just saying we don't, we can agree we don't know what it really is right now. So again, at this point, you can certainly change out the system if the city were desiring to do that. We would want to get a quote from the mechanical contractor to see what that would be. We'd have to get council approval and we'd have to run it through the IRRB. SCH nor the city, I don't think are saying we can't do that. If that's really the desire of Lampa, we're just saying it's going to be a change. As far as...
Can I make a comment for your engineers?
Yes.
These systems, you can reintroduce that air fine into a building as long as they're well shut. If it were a woodworking shop or something where the dust could be considered explosive, you can still do it, but you have to have extra filtration and a quick blowout thing in the duct. But with a well shop, it is not necessary.
And again, I don't know Minnesota State building code, so I'm not going to argue with that. Whether that is right or wrong, I have no idea, because I'm not up to speed on the HVAC and filtration requirements for a weld shop. But certainly I can pass that note along. As far as the paint booth, this is the first I've heard of that, Dale, other than it didn't come with some of the wiring we wanted. My understanding is that you selected the paint booth and we put in exactly what you wanted. So if that is different,
I told you the brand, but I mean, nobody ever gave me a list of what the options were.
Okay.
It just, next thing I heard, 9 months later, it was in.
So it might be the right model, but not some of the options you want?
Well,
is that what I'm hearing?
Lighting is critical when you're painting black.
Yep. But the lighting is another one that would be probably a pretty easy add to the paint.
No one ever talked to us.
And I'm not arguing there. I know there was one meeting during design, and I don't know if anything happened.
I was at that meeting.
I know you were, I was not. So again, if the paint booth itself, if it's adding lighting, I think that's probably a pretty
It's a very good quality booth. And again, as we said, this is how they come. But the Lampa environment very likely will cover the exterior of the booth with sound deadening material to further reduce. I mean, this is how we do everything. It's to make it better than is required. We don't want employees to have, if you're at 85 decibels average additive decibels, you don't have to do every year hearing aids for employees because you're under that. We don't want to have to do that.
So again, insulation and lighting, I think to the paint booth would probably be pretty easy add-ons if we're overall happy with the booth
Yeah, it's a good
that's
booth.
there.
I'd still like to know what the CFMs of the air you're pulling out and how much it's going to, what the BTUs of the air makeup unit is. Because when I sat and talked with everybody at that meeting, I said, we were trying to come up with a system that did not require an air makeup unit because they are so inefficient.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
And obviously they
be making things up quite right to answer that. And again, I can't comment whether they listened to it or not. I was not part of those discussions.
I have a suggestion here. I'm wondering if the full team that you talked about, and you've also talked about a number of different organizations, that they can come together and from this point on include Dale in those discussions to make sure that you're covering the equipment needs long-term for their business.
So you'll have to make a decision as a council whether we want to make some of those changes, so that will add dollars. I guess the other thing I wanted to just hit on is the schedule, and Dale kind of hit on the main points of it already. We gave a notice to proceed the end of July, 24th, 5th, something like that. By contract, they had till the end of the year to get the work done. So I'm not a part of what the lease agreement was. I didn't write that agreement. I was not privy to that. So I'm sure that October date is probably right, but it does not agree with what the construction documents have. So you have that discrepancy. I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. So liquidated damages, in essence, could have started at some level in January, but there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. One, we purposefully told them not to finish the site work last fall because we had extremely rainy, wet September, October, so we have requested one lift of bituminous and not the final lift and not the site restoration. So we purposefully said that can't happen until the spring, which will be now the end of May when bituminous plants open up again. I had discussions with Linda, I think the old mayor Josh probably in late December, and we talked about liquidated damages. And because of the spring work we knew and because of the wet fall that they had, and us being a little late on some of the contract documents, we said, you know what, we're not going to apply any at this time. I think I maybe talked to Linda in the middle of February, end of February about it again. We did not make a decision at that time. Hindsight 2020, yes, we should have absolutely done that. If the council chooses, we could start enforcing the liquidated damage probably as soon as tomorrow. And if your damages are $250 a day in the contract, but we are required to notify them, we can't just start assessing without proper notification. So we'd have to send them a letter. So as far as move-in dates, it's been frustrating for all of us. We were told the building was complete. We scheduled the walkthrough. It was very incomplete. We were told last Thursday move-in would be today. I went up there before this meeting. The punch list items still aren't done, at least half of them from what I can see. So I can call as many times as you want me to, but I can't put the contractor in a headlock and drag him there and make him do the work. Financially is really the only tool that we have to force them to get there. So that would either be liquidated damages or, you know, non-payment through pay requests, etc. So I'd like to tell you, Dale, you're moving in tomorrow. I went up there and I could tell you the carpet isn't in. Some of the other things that we saw were not ready to go. And there was no one working there today.
I was surprised.
So delay penalties are not retroactive. They begin when...
You have to notify them that you're going to start enforcing them.
One other thing I forgot to mention, that when we went through the walkthrough that was on the LAPA list, is there's not enough room for a semi to back into the loading dock. Because we only have 10 inches between the bollard. They're going to back in straight. There's a concrete or a steel bollard over concrete. And they're going to back in straight. Semi-trailer is 8.5 feet wide. They have only 10 inches between that and the bollard.
Yeah, so there's a couple things with that bollard. If you look at the placement of it to the corner of the roof, it got pushed out from the building slightly. Otherwise, there was a chance someone would hit the roof. So it got pushed out a few more inches. That being said, we could still widen the bituminous slightly out the other direction to widen that out. I did not hear that, but that is, again, something that can be done.
That was something we talked about. They said they're going to have to go out another 4 feet.
Yeah.
We were going to have a move-in date today. We couldn't have vendors and we couldn't ship to customers because the semi can't get in there without...
and that wouldn't change because we told them to hold off on the paving until the spring.
But even now, you could throw in a foot of gravel out there.
So that is an easier one because we still have to do the final paving. That would be an easy thing to accomplish.
I'd like to know what this council can do to remedy this situation and all the delays and the equipment changes that you'd like to make. And then the second thing I mentioned earlier, I think that Dale should be involved more in the decision making. So he at least is there and they hear his opinion, knows that they know that whatever specifications that there are being discussed are according to what Lampa needs to do their production.
I agree with that. I would just let you know, I think we can get together, whether it's in person or on a call, but remember that any of these changes are things that will come back to the council for consideration. If that costs money outside of the contract, I don't have the authority to spend your money.
It's going to cost money, but it's also going to take more time.
It's also going to take more time.
Now, something else for the council to know. We are running at 125% of last year. Now, I don't mean we're at 25% of last year. We're running at more than double of what last year was. We desperately need to get in this building. And I mean desperately. Because normally the first month, we do about 35 to 40%. The first half, we do about 35 to 40% of our business. 65%, 60 to 65% the second half. So we're approaching crisis point. So this delay is now very, very critical for us.
So
And
perhaps,
the only other, oh, I was gonna say one other comment about the keys. I don't have keys, Linda doesn't have keys. This is a contractor-owned site right now. They have contracts to be there, it's their site. They can, so until we accept the building and request the keys from them, there is no keys to give to Dale to just walk in there. It's still a site under their control for the contract. So we want to get acceptance of the interior of the building and have the keys turned over to us. Like, for example, there's not even locks on most of the doors as of today. So there is no key to turn over.
But you can't get in.
I can't get in, you can't get in, but the contractor can get in. Yeah.
we're talking about revenue, lost revenue here for a very important manufacturing company in Tower. We're also talking about lost revenue for the city of Tower. And so we need to take this very seriously. So I'll go back to my previous question. Is there something that this council should resolve tonight to move things along? And I'll pose that question to you, Dale, to you, Matt, and to the clerk, Linda. Or will you get together and kind of resolve where we need to go? And our next meeting is on the 28th, so we're 2 weeks away.
I will start by saying I want to apologize to the council and everybody else for getting really kicked off. But I don't know how else to get your attention.
And I apologize, I was largely unaware of many of the issues that you shared in your most recent email. And, you know, what I'm seeing and hearing is a breakdown in communication somewhere. And so I'm wondering, Gail, would you be able, to get together with SEH and be at our next meeting and provide updates from your standpoint on where things are?
Which next meeting?
28th.
I would think that we need to be before that with Dale and get
No, I meant like.
everything figured out so that
as
if
soon as
there's
possible.
changes that we agree to, that we bring them to you and say, here's what the cost of those changes would be
Right.
for your action.
And yep, absolutely, as soon as that's able to happen, to get these rolling as soon as possible, but just to keep the council informed so that we can facilitate or do whatever we need to do to prevent any more issues from arising and help support this project.
So just one thing to consider is if they get stuff done this week, and let's just say next Monday, we're giving you the keys for the building. If you're gonna go back and do things in there, we'll have to allow the contractor to go back in, even though they're now moving in, especially if you do an HVAC change, that's a big one.
We can't move in. If we're going to change out the air extraction system, we can't move until it's done.
Exactly.
Yeah, I figured, so that needs to be, so you're gonna
Now,
have
the paint
to.
booth would have to be done before we can start this. Because once with the paint booth, we will be spraying the entire inside of the paint booth with a special material so that we can, over the lights and everything, it'll be clear. So every 3 months or something, we can peel it all off and the inside is perfectly clean, including the floor. So again, keeps a very nice environment for the employees. You respray it, you keep it clean. Again, we're planning to take a best-in-class approach. That's what we want to do.
I agree with that. Seems like you have the best-in-class product, try to keep this in a long-term manufacturing business. I think it's a good idea.
Now, we have the first furnace approved. We just heard from the EPA on Thursday. Second furnace is now getting tested. They finally, after 6 months of waiting, finally have given us a direction on which direction we need to go to get the other one approved. So if we get this other one approved, historically, we always sold more of that one than the current one, and we're already running at 123%. So I talked to Gerald today, and I said, Gerald, look, what are we going to have to do with this all? We don't know. We're a little packed. Yeah.
So So again, I repeat, if this council needs to call a special meeting to pass any kind of resolution to speed this along, we will do that. Land management is very important.
I can be available any day that I'm not already pre-committed for all the time.
So I would think tonight, if you wanted to do something with, say, SCH, we want you to start enforcing liquidated damages.
Okay, I was going to bring that up.
So we can do that, then you have to ask what you're going to do with that $250 a day. It is not going to probably be legal to pay out to a private entity, so I don't get the idea that you're writing a check to the land lease, because the state of Minnesota, who's providing you grant and loan, is going to have something to say about that. So it might save you the overall cost. It would, and it would.
Maybe that goes to some of the change-out costs for your filtration system.
That's what I was going to suggest next, and you would apply it if you wanted to make any of the changes or additions, you would apply that to change order.
Also, if it puts a fire under the feet of the contractor,
It's
then...
going to put fire in the feet, yeah.
Okay. Then, can someone formulate that motion?
You can. Well, I guess we would take a motion to the city engineer and manufacturing work together to discuss the changes required or needed and do that as soon as possible.
Okay, that would be one thing, and then the second thing is to initiate the monetary penalty.
You can add that to my motion.
So then we'd send a letter out tomorrow, I'll find it.
Okay, is there a,
I'll support.
your support? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you. No good.
Okay, Airport Commission proposed 2019-20 projects. That's 8.3.
Yeah. We got, the commission members meeting extensively about two projects that we've got listed here. I think Linda gave you the packet for the airport stuff there. There's one that says budget items for 2019. Right there. And right now, we're looking at a project with SEH. Our runway is deteriorating. It was resurfaced in 2012. So we're starting to get some cracks in that area there. So that was kind of disadvantage of going with blacktopping, but this will need to keep up with it. So right now, the crack seal construction, the total costs are looking at $39,500. If you go right across, the 90% FAA participation would be pay $32,000, some cents there. And state participation is $18.25, so local participation would be $18.5% of that 39. And I think Lydia gave you a picture of where some of the cracks are. So they have a, right now SEH has sent out bids on 3 different contractors come throughout the state here to do this. We don't have a timetable, but we need the okay from you people to move forward on this. The next line was the crack seal and SRE building design costs. Over the last 7-8 years, we purchased a New Holland snowblower and a lawnmower, and every year we go through trying to find where we're going to keep this snowblower and keep it handy. And it runs about $1,000 from November to April. And so now we're getting to the point where we need to start looking at a bill of some sort. So on the next line, we're looking at a 2-year project for a 40 by 40 building, a turnkey type thing. And the crack seal, which is the next line, is the design of the crack seal, which is about $10,000 at $55,000. And then the SCR building design
would be 45,000, so a total of 55,000 there. And if you go all the way across the right side there, the local participation, we pay $2,785. So this year, our 2019 budget, the commission's asking if we could come up with $4,610. That's the crack repair and also the design of our new building. There's a diagram there with that new hall in there, 40 by 40. That's the FAA, they only allow us that size building for our attachments. We'd like to go larger, but again, the local money, we'd have to come up with a lot more money.
From the commission meeting, I don't recall what that number is, but it would go up. In other words, the FAA portion goes down, and the city's portion goes up.
So if you look on my sheet, I don't know if you've got that, I think it's like a 40 by 50 turnkey. We'd have to come up with around $40,000.
As opposed to 4610.
Actually, we'd have to come up, the total bill between 2 years would be $17,500. So we're gonna split that building into two phases. The first part is the design, and then the next would be the construction of the building.
Okay, and the 40 by 50 building, the extra 10 feet, what would that be? That's another 80 square feet.
Yeah, it'd probably be probably about 30,000 more, because we have to come up with that kind of money, because the FAA is telling us that's all we can do is build a 40 by 40 for our attachments, our equipment there.
If you had actually had more equipment, rigger and all that, then you would have been entitled to a...
The city portion of the, does that come out of a special fund, or is it come out of the...
Yeah, $5,000 went into the airport capital project company. I was also going to pay on some debt too, and only put $90 for the report, and $390 for the debt, but we would be able to cover that.
We would be able to cover the 4610.
Our first priority would be the crack seal.
Yeah, right, that's huge, yeah.
You don't look so bad for a car, don't you?
Probably black out doesn't last very long.
It keeps saying we're not going to visit somebody again.
I think the SEH probably for about 6 years, 6 or 7 years average.
Yeah, that's
Well, we need to, all the airports.
So the design of the building is not included in this. It is included in this.
What's that?
The 40 by 40.
Yep, yeah. So total cost.
Oh, yeah, there it is, yeah. The SRE building design cost, okay, got it.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can ask a question about it. Sounds like they want a larger building. Did you build the current building, but not design that like you originally wanted to do, so that you could blow on a wall and extend on later?
Well, I was getting to that. If you design the building this year, but you're not building it until next year, if things change for any reason, can it be revised, the design be revised before it's actually built?
I think so, but it goes back to how much money we want.
Yeah.
We're right now.
Yeah, I understand that the cost goes way up.
Right now, we're at $17,500 for that building, and 40 by 50 would be 40,000 local money.
I think our, with the current situation of the city, I think that we're best off going with this 2019 budget item, 4610. We'll have discussion, but is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Okay. And further discussion? Any questions?
When did the remainder of those funds, the 5,000 less the 4610, that's going to be down,
That's, the airport account has a standing debt for all the different projects we've done over the years.
What's that standing debt? You don't know what the standing debt is?
I don't know, off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
John, do you?
I thought it was 98,000.
Somewhere, I would say somewhere in the 90s, something
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
We have like 7 lines in debt, so
Okay.
I want to say off the top of my head.
I'd like to move ahead, so is there any further discussion? The motion then is to go with the budget item for 2019 at 4610.
Local share, yes.
Local share, yes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
8.4, accept Landing Foundation broadband grant.
This was a grant that Richard had alluded to, I guess he left, that he has alluded to earlier. It's a $75,000 grant from Landon. I don't see any reason why the city should not go for this. And this does solve our issue with previous grants. This grant is actually funded up front. So at the time, if you make a motion to accept it, I would also like you to include in the motion to set a separate account for this, so that we can track it separately and we can utilize that to keep expenses and completely quarantine from our city. But it does not require the city funds out prior to paying the bill, or when we pay the bills, like previous grants. So this I think would be a good step for us.
So I'll make that motion to accept the Landon Foundation broadband grant and set aside a separate account.
And then the only thing other than I forgot to add was I would like to have one of the signers rather than the typical 3 be one of the people from the broadband committee. 3 plus members. So I think 2 were probably the mayor, myself, and then I believe it's Joanne Bassing that's chairing, or John, I'm not sure which one, is chairing the committee, so we'll ask one of them to stop today and sign that paper, just for that account.
Okay. Okay, further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mine was an aye. Okay, 8.5, ambulance conversion to part-time ALS.
All right, as fast as we can go through there, your next thing is an email chain between Chief Lewis and myself. So I had a meeting with him a couple Fridays ago. He'd been given some bad information and he was wondering if I could help him organize it. So I brought him our actual finished budget stuff from the auditors. And then our billing company for the ambulance provided our rates and, is that not in here? Was doing, no, okay. I actually am, luckily I have a copy. I will share that with you guys. So that he could get an idea of, he had been asked to, even though we've been over this over and over, the auditors were this year, he had been asked to look at this yet again and see how our financials work. Basically, and you can go through the first letter is the last in the email chain, and so he basically just states, you know, you can read it for yourself, but our budget's good, and his summation was, my business model was good and worked really well, and our financials are really good. And he references, you know, our rates compared to their rates, and you can see how much of a difference that is. So 55% is overall is what we're at. We're there at 38%. So our stuff is pretty impressive. He was pleasantly surprised and is looking forward to working with us more in the future because we don't actually have any problems. So it's a bonus for him because they're trying to help out other places that are in deep trouble. And so I advised him that we could work together, and if other places like needed his help right now, that he could easily focus on them since we're doing really well. The purpose of our meeting, when you get to the last page of the email, was to look at, so when I started at the end of 2016, in December 2016, in the beginning of 2017, I told the city council that in the future, one of the things we needed to look at was we probably going to need to move towards a part-time ALS system. So I got kind of sidetracked on that because some sort of permanent staffing needed to be done first, and that was more important. The service has never had any ALS. We always rely on our neighbor to provide ALS when we need it. So it is not critical that we're full-time ALS at this time as we will slowly grow. There's probably only been, like last year, about 15 patients out of the 351 that we were called for on 911 that absolutely needed ALS. No doubt about it. Some of them even got flown out. The rest are a mix of actually probably didn't need it, but we already called them out there and intercepted with them, and you know, we can provide some ALS for them to make the trip easier, safer, pain. But it is definitely a thing we should move towards because we do have critical patients. We do have patients that are hard to get at and take a long time to get back to shore. And when somebody's broken a hip or having a heart attack on an island, as soon as we get there, we need to be able to help them. Not 45 minutes to an hour after we were called, but now we finally got them, we can get them back to shore, and now they can get some sort of ALS treatment. So that was our goal all along, and so we need to return back to that. So first thing I did was talk to our medical director, since he is the end-all be-all, and he gave me permission to move forward however I saw fit with any kind of ALS he fully supports. I then had the meeting with Alan, and after he had reviewed our numbers, he is more than happy to start the process with us. So the ALS licensure, it's a little complicated because you're not just adding to your service, you're basically starting over. Don't ask me why it's like that. And then I went to the state, actually, before I went to Alan to get information from him. So the state sent me a recent, this was from 2017, from a BLS that actually moved to get to a part-time ALS license. Here's a complete application. Now there's a lot of just, and we don't have the original application from 1960 whatever, so there's just a lot of information that has to be looked up, put together. It's not the end of the world, but logistically speaking, I would not promise part-time ALS before 12 months. By the time this gets done, by the time they review it, they're extraordinarily short-handed. They've lost a couple people over the last couple of years, so they're stretched really, really thin. So, but in the meantime, Alan and I talked about providing ALS transfers. So as long as we can get everything approved for that, that would be it's actually the next agenda item, so we can pull back and I might as well just finish talking about so we can move this along as fast as possible here, unless you have any objection. So the ALS transfers part of that is we will continue to operate as a BLS service until we can get a part-time ALS licensure. But as an ALS, we have very limited ALS, and there's only 2 full-time ALS in the area, Gidding and Virginia, in our close area. So because of the way the hospital system's changed, transferring patients to larger hospitals sooner rather than later, Virginia has exceeded what they can handle. They don't have, they can't afford to buy more rigs, hire more staff right now without, one, they wouldn't have anywhere to put them. And they're just not in that position. They hired a bunch more people already. And the ALS patients obviously are a little more critical than the BLS patients. So the plan that we came up to work together was that we would do ALS transfers with them. We would use our rig and one of our EMTs, and they would provide one of their paramedics. They would have to be on our rosters as staff or whatever, but they would still be Virginia employees. And in the last part of that email, that third page, that summation basically broke down the plan that we came up with, which was we do ALS transfers with them. Usually they're going to be in the evening, so our 2 services kind of work opposite of each other. We do a lot of daytime calls, and we do nighttime transfers, where we don't have a lot of daytime calls. They do a lot of daytime calls and a ton of daytime transfers, so by the end of the night they've taxed their staff and don't have anybody left to do them. So it's sort of a win-win for both of us. So we are looking then at coming up with a contract, and obviously that would end up coming back to the city attorney and council and blah, blah, blah. But the basic part of the terms would be, we would do that ALS transfer together. We would reimburse them just like we do for intercepts. We would reimburse them for the stated amount, and then we would first be getting an ALS patient to where they needed to go sooner, and both it would benefit the PSA and both of our services as far as also financial. And then this would too give us we don't have a ALS transfer. It's not something we do regularly. So before we actually move to having part-time ALS, which is going to take a while to get that license, it would give us some kind of idea of what sort of finances that would actually provide. So that we can look and then say, because ALS, so you're looking at staffing, and then the mayor and Councilor Bello were at a meeting, you two are fully aware of how expensive that is for one lousy employee. So in order to decide how you move forward, just like we did with Pay.Call, we need to have some sort of baseline of what kind of, how will that system sustain itself. And so this, again, this is where it works for both of us. Instead of us both having to try and add more staff and figure out how to pay for it, we can work together, generate some revenue, and both show that this is good. This will benefit our entire area as a team. So that's where we're at. I would need the council approval to pursue that ALS part-time licensure, to pursue a contract with Virginia for ALS transfers. And the biggest thing about that contract too is that it has to be really fluid. It has to be ad hoc as far as neither one of us. He actually wanted less money as a reimbursement. I said absolutely not. I said neither one of us would be doing that transfer if we weren't working together. And you have to be able to show that it's also financially feasible for you to use your staff in that way as well as us using ours. So, however, whatever changes would be made to that contract in its final form after the fact, we would need to be able to do that, you know, which wouldn't be a big deal. But if you've gone 6 months and you can say, we need to tweak this or this in the contract, you just agree to do that. And Alan and I have a great working relationship, so he definitely wants to work with me on this, and he thinks it's a benefit to both of us.
So this will give us fairly quick advanced life support service?
Negative. This is for patient care from hospital to hospital initially. We cannot provide ALS service until I have that licensure. But again, this just helps everybody now, and it also gives us some sort of baseline for what kind of revenue, because at some point, even when you have that licensure, if you're going to now start utilizing paramedics in part-time or full-time, or however you can afford to do it, you want to be able to show that you can financially support that. So, and like I said, we have no baseline for that. I mean, we have a bunch of good numbers and stuff that's great, but we'd like to be able to show that it's sustainable for both of us. So there's two different things there. Moving towards the licensure, but then also using ALS staff to help Virginia do transfers. Those are the two different issues there.
And the second one is to pursue a contract with Virginia to use ALS staff to do
Yes,
those transfers.
yes.
And then as far as the ALS equipment, I think we had talked about that they have like a bake or like a jump
Yes.
kit that they would bring.
So there isn't a lot of difference between anymore between what they do. I mean, the biggest difference is some medications. The other difference is if you needed a patient that might need pacing on the way to the hospital. Our Zols, we have the exact same equipment. So, but our Zols are not programmed for that because we cannot utilize that feature. In the future, we would just have to pay to have that programmed into it.
Would they be bringing a Zol?
If they needed one.
Okay.
So pacing is kind of a rare and not a usual thing.
Right.
So, should we talk? Like you know, but so but Basically, just like when we do an intercept with them, they have a jump kit that has their medications and their intubation tools. Those are the two big ones. Everything else we have. So, it's not for the transfer part of it, there's not an issue as far as that goes.
So do they have a paramedic that's here part-time in
No.
Tower?
No.
Only for transfers?
Only for transfers. You have to understand how much, so we'd be utilizing, we're paying to, just like we do with that intercept, we're paying when we use that paramedic. We don't have and no way of showing how much, we have no baseline for doing ALS anything yet. So this is why it's a good first step to show that as you keep moving forward, you have a way to provide that service and afford it. Especially when there was a lot that was made, even just with the paid on-call staff that we had right now, like, that's cost nothing compared to once you've moved into ALS. So how are you going to pay for that? And so we're going to step forward into that very carefully, which is something else that Alan likes.
Is our average collected per run quite a bit higher than is that what I heard you say?
So overall, yes. So our building rate is at like 90%. Our overall collection rate, and that's the first page of that email, is 55. Ours is 55%. Theirs is 38%. A big part of that again is now because the Medicaid, Medicare patients for the 911 calls. It doesn't matter if it's a $1,500 bill or a $2,000 bill, whatever it is, Medicaid or Medicare carries you that flat rate. And like for us, it's like 482, and I think they're at like 582 there, because if it's an ALS call. So that's all you collect. So there's where you don't make as much money as on the 911 calls, whereas those transfers, and it's kind of is, it's the way it is. It's not, you don't want to have to rely on those transfers 100%, but the reality is that the only way you can fund all your staff anymore is by taking those transfers. So,
and one of the real positives here is that it's a win-win. Virginia wants to do this because they're winning as well.
it's the way, well, ideally, we get to help take care of patients that might have to wait another 2, 3, 4 hours for the next closest service, which might be International Falls, might be Deer River, it might be 7 hours, even though so there's a whole chain of events that kind of snowballs. Your hospital has a patient, they call the next hospital and say, can you take this patient? And they say, yeah, we can take this patient. They're expecting that patient within a couple hours or so, within reason. Now it's 5, 6 hours later. So they're holding that bed still, because you told them you were sending them somebody, but they haven't got there, so now they're behind schedule. So now then when that patient finally gets there, now they gotta still treat that patient, obviously. So it is ultimately about the patient care, is getting those people to where they're supposed to be going as soon as possible. One, so that they can get the treatment, but two, so that it doesn't continue to strain all these other hospitals, because the longer they're sitting there in the hospital where they can no longer do anything for them, staff still has to take care of it. They can't, they're just monitoring them at that point, but there again, you have a bed, and Virginia's got 70 ER beds, which is, I mean, there's nothing they can do about that, but they get backed up incredibly huge.
I get that this is really a positive thing, and it's this is good work, Steve. First of all, I'm really glad that we're working regionally with our neighbors, especially our big sisters to the east and the west, and ultimately we will be providing a higher level of medical service to our own citizens right here. And
yeah, to our service area, entire PSA that we serve. Yeah, correct.
I'm all for it. You're asking for council approval to move forward with developing a contract.
Yes, for the ALS transfers with Virginia at this time, that would be our first thing.
Okay. And as part of that, will there be a cash flow forecast so that we'll kind of see over the next 3 years?
Well, no. So there again, there is no. I can tell you, but I can't promise. I can't make it come true. I can tell you, though, our current way we're thinking right now is that an ALS transfer bill's at $1,600, So we give them 600 to cover their staff, and they can make a little money, and then the $1,000 covers our staff and expenses. So, 'cause
So we build up our fund for the ambulance as well.
that is the idea,
And
yes.
pay for the
Yeah, because ultimately, when you become ALS, you're gonna have an investment, because you're going to have that pacing added to your results. You're going to now have to have the medication, purchase the medications that you do not currently have. So there's always, at that higher level of care, there's always an extra expense. And then, of course, you're gonna have, trying to round up some paramedic staff at that point too.
A
So,
higher level of care for our own citizens is one of the things that I think is really important. And then secondly, paying for the ambulance and building the ambulance fund, I think is really important. And the cash flow forecast, the key word is forecast. It's not like this is what it's going to be, but projected, given what we know, this is where we'll end up in 3 years. And that's what I was talking about a cash flow forecast.
yeah, at this point, as far as the cash flow, I mean, until we actually have several months of doing it, so we can kind of say this is gonna be our monthly average, we don't really have anything to base it off of. Okay, but we can say, well, everyone will make us X amount of dollars, so if we do, 10 in a month, this is what you'd be looking at, but you don't, again, there's nothing to gauge it off of because we haven't done this partnership before.
Well, I like the way this is developing. That's really good work. I'm really pleased. Is there, you're looking for a motion?
Well, 8.5 was I don't know, it doesn't matter to me which one you do, but 8.5 was the ambulance conversion to part-time ambulance. So if that's what if you agree with everybody else I've gotten the okays from, the last okay would be from you.
Is there a lot of cost to doing that application?
No, it's not a costing, it's a time thing, and then it's a time thing for them to actually approve it, so.
Okay, so are we doing a motion now that's going to cover both 8.5 and 8.6?
If that's what you want, that's fine with me. You can do them separately or together.
So I'll make a motion to approve Steve to move forward with the part-time ALS licensure application.
Okay.
So that's for 8.5.
Okay.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Obviously not. Okay, very good, congratulations. Then another motion, 8.6.
So 8.6, so that's the contract.
Yeah, you're just telling me to go ahead and move forward with that.
Okay.
The contract will have to be drawn up. I'm sure both city attorneys are gonna wanna look at, we're gonna try and keep it as simple as possible. And then it will come to you, and it will also go to the city of Virginia for approval. So this is just telling me you are fine with us moving ahead based on what I've told you, what this is doing. Yeah, I'm not gonna have a contract drawn up, me and Alan are gonna sit and put one together and without, it doesn't make sense to do the work.
So I'll move to approve Steve moving forward with pursuing a contract with Virginia for ALS transfers.
And that would be any expense with Andy that he so has.
What?
That would be any expense you have with Andy as well in your motion to get the legal work done.
You're gonna wanna have your city attorney approve the contract,
Yeah.
and so is Virginia's gonna wanna do the same.
I'm assuming
No,
that's what you're saying.
you guys just put that contract together first and then maybe come to us to look at it and then.
Sure, and then if you want to forward it, yeah.
So we could preview it first and then go to Andy.
Yeah, so I doubt we'll have this in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Maybe in a month we'll have this ready to bring back to you.
So I would add on to the motion with council review.
Okay.
It's good to have that on. I've taken this given, but it's better to have it explicit. Okay. And are you supporting?
Yeah, I
Okay.
support.
And any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, the next one is 8.7. This is pretty simple. So weekends are kind of still at a weak point in coverage because you have particular weekends where everybody just takes off. They've got plans, vacation, they're out fishing, whatever. And now that we're coming into summer, which you know is our busy time. You can go back and look at all the graphs and see how much more work is done in the summer. I thought I better get some sort of preventative measures in place now for having some more staff time covered. So what I'm looking at is having one EMT up to 27 more hours. So it'd be like Saturday at 12:01, you know, so Friday night, because if you want to at 12:01, is when our coverage ends for our paid on-call staffing. So having at least one staffer on for up to the next 27 hours. So that would be a max cost of $300, at the highest rate would be a max cost of $310.50 a week. And then hopefully try and fill it with the staff that we have. If we can't consistently do that, then we may have to look for another step, you know, paid on call staff or to fulfill that time. And I don't know that we have to have it for all of those hours, but that, I'm just saying that would be the maximum hours that we would go to, would be that 27. If we can fill most of those hours with the staff that we have already, them just signing up to cover those hours on paid on call, and maybe we can just do it from 8 in the morning to 8 in the morning or something like that. I don't know, you know, but I wouldn't exceed that. The only reason up to 3 a.m. on a Saturday night is because between midnight and 3 a.m., if there's really some crazy stuff that's going to go on, that's when it's going to, you know, the daytime stuff is going to be normal things, people crashing a boat or a car wreck or a heart attack or whatever. That midnight to 3 is where things can really go sideways. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And I haven't talked to, we have a meeting next week to see what they think of that too. But obviously if we're going to spend more on staffing, that's why I'm asking about it.
So you're asking for the potential of $310 maximum per week in addition for extended
Up to 27 hours.
Up to 27
Yeah,
hours.
and that's because that's the max rate right now, so that's the max that would cost.
Okay, so then we watch that and adjust up or down.
Yeah, like I doubt I'm gonna be able to fulfill even that many hours with our staff, because it depends on who's gonna be around. But if we can get some of those critical hours filled in there, you know, one week it might be 20 hours, the next weekend it might be only 16 hours that got covered. But as long as we're not jeopardizing patients by not having somebody there, we'll try and be flexible with it right now.
As long as we're improving the service to our clientele here in town, and
which is the objective,
and that's number one, of course, and that we have the wherewithal to cover the cost through the ambulance fund. I'm all for it.
So we'll see how it goes, and you know, I'll see how I work with Linda, because any constant budget stuff, I have to ask her anyway to see how that is affecting everything. So
okay. So move on this.
Any more?
Yeah. To go to an additional 27 hours.
one EMT up to 27 hours.
Up to 27 hours, but it's under constant revision if we need less.
Yeah, if it's gonna fail and we gotta cut it back or something, and yeah, it's gonna start costing too much money, then
So we're talking about an extension, but there's a max that we're actually naming or listing, and hopefully it'll be lower. We
Correct.
can cover it otherwise. Okay.
So I'll make a motion to add one more EMT up to 27 hours paid on call.
Feel comfortable with that? Obviously, you made that motion.
I made the motion, but it's been a second to be discussed.
Okay.
I'll make it.
Okay. Further discussion.
So, so that'd be about around 15 grand a year.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Okay. these funds would be coming out of ambulance as well. And how does that look for the overall health of the ambulance fund?
Well, so overall, like this last year, and I didn't go through everything, but I spent somewhere between $70,000 and $80,000 of money that we made last year on buying equipment. So we always have to still generate some revenue. The biggest thing is that the calls steadily go up every year, and again, I realize that's why I'm only asking to add one person, not two, and just to try it and see if it works.
And would the number of those hours used be dependent on who signed up for that and how many hours they signed up for?
We're gonna try utilizing the staff that we have and see if we can cover a bunch of those hours with the people that we got, as opposed to actually hiring somebody to say, okay, we are hiring you to specifically cover a chunk of time.
And so if staff were eager to take those hours, then there's the potential that all 27 hours could be taken?
Possibly, not likely, but possibly.
Okay.
I don't think too many people are gonna sign up for that super late night stuff. But yeah, it's really hard to say until we talk about it, because it's never been tried quite like this before. So I kind of trying to ease into it a little bit and see if we can't have somebody, at least one person that we know is ready to go.
Would there be any opportunity to do like a 3-month trial period for this, to say from now till an end date?
I would say
and then reevaluate?
It's probably pretty good. Those are 3 fairly busy months.
Because maybe by the time this rolls out, it would be June, maybe June, July, August.
Yeah, it would, yeah.
And then September reevaluate and look at how many of those hours or shifts were signed on for, how many runs were completed during those, and is this feasible? Or is it something?
Yeah, overall, I think you're gonna have to look at the financial end. You can't go by how many runs were done.
Sure.
Because on a Tuesday, you might have 1 or no runs for that day.
Right.
And then on a Saturday, you could end up with 4 or 5. And it changes every week, every month. It's completely random. That's the problem. It's not like people don't schedule ahead to fall and break the leg.
Do you want to add that onto your motion?
To do
A 3-month review?
3-month review, yeah. Yes, yeah, I'd like to have it on.
And you accept the amendment? Okay. I think we're actually supposed to vote on the amendment as well, but let's take the motion as it is. Getting late. Are you satisfied with that? Okay. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Keep it going, Steve. We want to improve our service for people here. Good job. Civic Center stove, 8.8.
The ladies that gave you,
I'm sorry, Linda, can I ask something? My 8.6 and 8.7 are blank. Is that?
yeah, there doesn't have anything.
Okay, go back to 8.8.
There's nothing for that one either. The Civic Center stove currently is electric, and the ladies that you had given some money to 2 or 3 meetings ago are actually down shopping right now, and had put the call in Friday, wondering if there's any way that we could change to gas, which it is entirely possible that we would be propane. We had a propane tank out there before, so it'd be easily put back on the pad. There's no issue there. The only thing that we probably would have to pay for would be the plumbing into the building, but the cost of the stove would be cheaper. So there'd be some.
Do we bring in an outside plumber or do our maintenance guys?
No, we would have to use an outside plumber.
Okay. Let's get a motion
The
first.
stove is cheap, and they could pay for some of the installation.
Yeah, we could hopefully
I'm not
offset
sure.
that with what we already set aside for it. But yeah, and then it's just more reliable. Any chefs that are great chefs would say, yeah, I don't know anything about this, but.
I just want a motion and a motion
They
and
would say
support
gas
and then
is
we'll
better.
do discussion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to,
I'll support.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any questions?
no, it's worth it.
And, just what the cost difference would be a cheaper stove, but have to do some plumbing work and stuff.
Yeah.
So-
It's about 6 feet, the stove from the outside wall is about 6 feet, I can tell you that. They asked me to look at it and, you know, because it's the fire system and all that, blah, blah, blah. So it's not a long distance that it has to be plumbed. It would save on the electrical load of that building, because that's all electric one that's there now, so, and gases, they do like gas for cooking better than those.
So we get a good rate on the gas. Okay.
It would be the city, like when we had that tank there before, it would be the city rate, because it's a city building.
City rated, okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Mine was an aye, so it's unanimous. Okay, Tita Manufacturing Building lease updates, that's 8.9.
I see a data left, but this was kind of in response to, when looking at the original lease agreement, he is right, it does say that we had forecasted for a move-in date of October. I think we knew in July almost that that wasn't really going to be possible, but we need to extend that lease agreement for, hopefully they'll be in on the 1st of June, if not before, and then that sort of take a term from June of 19 through May of 29. It's pretty simple, and I kind of am doing this slightly backwards. It should have gone to Tita and then to you, but in the interest of time saving and to keep Lambda a little happier, I'd rather you approve it, and then I'll run it through Tita at their meeting on the 3rd, I believe it is, or 6th, sorry.
Question for Matt.
Yeah.
Sorry,
do I get
already.
attention now?
The question, if we do make those upgrades, obviously June 1st is not coming, that would be my guess.
I can amend it to July 1st.
It's definitely not going to make it on June 1st because we're going to meet with them and then
I'm just
you requested us to come back to the
wondering,
council meeting on the 28th.
Maybe you should talk to Dale and just have them, maybe come to some agreement without having this, or should we have a lease in place, or?
You have a lease in place, this is just an amendment to it.
Okay.
Because the first lease that Andy had actually drafted, it says that they will be in taking occupancy October
Yeah, I'm
1st.
just, just because we had that discussion tonight about that, it'd be nice just to, hey, this is what we're doing, what do you think about it, you know?
I recall that Dale said the next time that the movers are actually available, the schedule is like the 18th and 19th of June. And to get them before that, he's going to have to pay some overtime, triple time, whatever it is, to get in earlier. That is to be taken into consideration, the cost, correct?
Yeah, and I'm just saying, yeah, you requested tonight that we come back to the council on the 28th with any changes, so just based on that, you won't be able to make it your first deadline.
So just, is it better to have, maybe this first review, and to have something in place with the lease with them? I mean,
The problem is, I mean, we've got following everyone on the same page.
Yeah.
So there's no.
I would just make the suggestion that we talk to them and say, hey, this is what we're doing.
Would you want to make that the 15th day of June, or?
And there's no way it'd be done by the 15th of June.
Well, if you're going to change up an HVAC system, and you're going to sign on the 28th, that won't be done by June 15th.
No.
You'll have to order equipment, you won't get the equipment.
I think people understand that, because it's right.
Yeah.
So that would take, you know, I suppose that time to city because everyone's busy, so.
Does it make sense to table this until the 28th?
Do you have to make a motion on it
No,
tonight?
that'd be fine. I can work on
I
it.
would probably advise.
I'm just trying to
At least we got a time for them.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get it to Tita before the 6th. That's my ultimate goal.
Yeah, well, we still do it on the 28th.
Okay, motion to table?
So we'll
Support.
Okay. Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed? Mine was an aye. City audit management note economic development loan.
There's a copy of the management report in your packet, items 8 and 9. The city auditor did find a few issues with the TITA loan issued to Tower Vision 2025 and Tower Harbor Shores. At this point, the city auditor has basically dumped it off into mine and Andy's lap. After further research and further conversations with the city auditor, and then also the original funding partner, which was the IRRR, it would seem the best choice to protect all parties involved would be to turn the matter over for disposition to the state auditor's office and have them formulate a proper resolution. The state auditor would be the governance and the controlling authority for our city auditor, the IRRR, and myself. And I think they have the wherewithal and the expertise to give us the best resolution. And I would say that that would be facilitated by Andy with them.
Okay, so the first one here provided a questionable reimbursable expense for the grant related to towers. So that was one of the invoices,
Yes.
which I was in that position at that time, which I gave to you, which was approved.
They don't satisfy the requirements. It lists that it's for a partner buyout. That is not.
It's not, it wasn't for a partner,
That's
but
right.
it made that very clear.
That is what the invoice states. That's what the invoicing party stated it was for in a follow-up conversation. And then it was also prior to the grant dates. So it wouldn't have been eligible for that reason as well.
But the payment wasn't for that. The payment was a payment for an invoice for the architectural work. And all the architect was saying in the same letter was that he was no longer going to be a party, a partner in the organization. So it's two different things. But the expense was legitimate and was reviewed at the time.
It's not legitimate. It does not meet the criteria.
Do you recall the total number, the total amount of all of the invoices? Because it wasn't an exact amount.
It was about 130,000. If you take that one away, it's about 20-some thousand short.
And 6,000 or 7,000 has been paid off of that, so the actual.
That's irrelevant. The problem is the invoice that was submitted.
Okay.
Any thoughts on it?
I mean, I haven't really looked into it, and I guess the question would be the council have to look at if there's another invoice that could be submitted, or, I mean, I haven't looked at whether or not it's proper or not, or those type of things, but I mean, certainly, I guess, clarification, or, you know, looking, maybe there was a mistake that was made, it seems.
Well, I don't have any of that information in my office anymore. All of that's been turned over to Michael Wood, who's the administrative guy working for or with Jeremy. So if he goes through those invoices, he may very likely, in fact, I'm sure he'll likely find another invoice, because that was not the last invoice that we paid for architectural and engineering. So Linda, if you could let Michael Wood and Jeremy Schoenfelder know what the shortage is that needs to be in an invoice that's approved, or that can be approved.
That was
an
finally
approved
not recommended
expense.
by our auditor. Just swapping invoices does not give the appearance that it was used all properly and above board.
So this was something that Devin.
Yes, it's in the audit. This is your report right here.
Yeah. Very strange, because he and I had that conversation and asked me about it. But I think this is something that probably Andy, the city attorney, together with the city council, and I would recuse myself, but provide any information or the source for any information, I don't have any myself, to determine whether this is actually was an illegitimate expense. Because I guarantee you that these were two separate things. It just happened to be described by the architect in the same letter.
He has stood by his original statement that was for the buyout, his partnership into it. And that's only one of the pieces of that. There's a couple of, the problem also is the date of the invoice. There's an issue with flag one, and there's also one issue, the second one that they outlined with the payback. So there's many moving parts to it all. And again, another reason to ask the state auditor to give us some direction.
Part of the, what I recall was that part of this was all tied into re-signing a new developers agreement at that same time, and the terms of that developers agreement had changed from the city side.
The development agreement has no bearing on this loan agreement.
Okay, well, there's,
So the city auditor said their job is to identify issues or concerns or problems, whatever, so that they have, and they said that they've outlined it. And Devin's original suggestion is to maintain that all the way through this, especially since the IRRB is involved, that we reach out to the state auditor. And I know they have some concerns about it, and I know they're waiting to hear the results of this meeting, so I would like to tell them that we'll put it in the hands of the folks that can best decide what to do.
What would they do with it? Just
They would ask
look
for
at all the invoices?
all the documents, take a hands-off approach into it and looking at it. They have no bearing one way or the other.
Right.
And then obviously probably I would imagine their first thing would be to protect the IRRB as they are both state agencies. And then their secondary thing would be to protect our city auditor and ourselves with whatever resolution they come up with.
So what can we do is ask for additional support from our community.
I'm sure they'll ask for additional documents from me, probably the whole loan file in general.
I'm
sure
some
some
of them want to be and everybody probably.
did you receive the AIA contract signed by Jeremy and the architect? That would clear it up.
That could be part of the whole. That doesn't cost us any money.
I think I gave that to Devin, by the way, but Devin may very much have that, because my recollection after having a discussion with him, that he was satisfied. But you decide to do what you want. The documentation is,
So, do we need a motion for
Yes,
that?
please.
So I guess I would make a motion to forward that to the state auditor for clarification and resolve.
let's go to the state auditor first, because does the council look at it first and decide? I mean, what I heard earlier, Linda, was that the council can look at the documentation and decide whether it should go further to the state auditor. And I would recuse myself, you recall I said.
So would we be expertise in that, be able to do that? Probably not.
That's right, they're able to read,
That's where we're at right now.
I know, but I don't know it. I wasn't involved in the HEDA stuff or IRRB things. So.
Devin went over this letter about 2 hours before it was written. So I would say that at the point that he wrote this, he was not satisfied. And his managing partner looked it over too.
Well, wait, we would need a second,
Support.
in our cannabis business.
any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Right?
All opposed say nay. And that would be me. I would.
Are you voting or are you opposing?
Would be best
I'm
for
not-
him to abstain since he's a, maybe,
He's
I
not
don't know if
really
he turned, but whatever. I'm just, I don't know.
Just take it through for a second. I don't know what that matters, I mean, certainly it's
Yeah, right.
true, I mean, you could
Right.
either abstain or you could say.
Well, it's bogus. So whether it's whether I abstain, I can abstain. That's fine. Or I can
Well, just
vote
do it,
aye.
you can do whatever you
I mean,
want.
I think you can vote on this if you want to vote on it.
Okay. Well, I.
So what is, are you voting or
I'm opposed.
or abstaining? Okay.
Okay, 811, city audit manage conflict of interest.
This also came up in the auditors. I'm kind of trying to work through their report little by little. I brought to you a few items at the last meeting. Probably have a few items at the next meeting. But this one, the auditors have identified, even though he has divested, that there is at least a strong perception that the mayor has a conflict of interest with the ongoing harbor project in Tower Harbor Shores. I think their advice was, for the sake of the greater good, just to step aside. I know Andy's looked into the issue pretty heavily, and he's offered his opinion. I think I sent that all to you before, but I included it in here as well.
Okay, well, Andy and I have had that discussion as well, and do you recall what what your answer to me was?
Well, I've always said that if you don't have a direct financial interest, you legally can vote on this. You can vote.
There is no conflict.
There's no conflict. The question again becomes if there's an appearance, best practice would maybe say you shouldn't, but legally you can vote on it.
And I think the auditors support that, I guess legally there isn't a true conflict of interest. I think they're going on the fact that the perception is very high.
I went through that a little bit too. So,
Sorry,
This-
this is ridiculous,
but
but,
we need
but go ahead.
my question is, because he doesn't really have a conflict, he can participate in the conversation of the development, and if he chooses to not vote, that's up to him. But he can still talk within about what's going on, blah, blah, blah.
But
But,
everything in.
yeah, okay. And then he can even vote yes or no on it if he wishes to.
Correct.
But for me, it's up to him when he wants to do that. But I don't feel I have a choice in that. That's his view of what we as a council can stop him from, that's a personal decision there, so.
Well, I'm not making a motion on this, so.
So,
I think the auditors, their other opinion was that
Oh.
there could be, because there is
Yeah.
the high perception that could land Tower in a potential lawsuit, and then to avoid that, the easiest way is to take the higher road. So
we can find him,
you could ask, you can't.
Oh, so he's pretty much said he's gonna run this, so.
Yeah, that's,
So,
yeah.
that'll be the end of that. So we can move on.
Is that your formal response that you won't, because I should answer?
Oh, yeah.
I don't care what your answer is, but I should answer it.
Well, we should have one.
I think that's.
It's going to be situational. If there's an issue that comes up about Tower Harbor Shores, and if my vote matters, and if my vote could harm the city, I would vote in such a way that the city would not be harmed. Otherwise, I mean, there is no conflict of interest, but I would take the city's best interest in regard. I don't know quite how to put this. I just don't quite know how to put this, but I would put the city before any kind of personal concern.
Rachel, do you have any comments?
No, I think we had a discussion, and it sounds like we're not moving, but heading in a direction where no formal motion is being made, and I don't have anything to add.
Okay, so as a council, we would be not making any formal motion to do the
That's
discussion.
fine, okay. That's fine.
Okay, 8.14, Resolution 2019, resolution to apply for bonding bill funds.
Yes, the Tower County Wastewater Board had met with some folks from SEH regarding a potential water filtration plant project. The Township of Reading would not be able to be the applicant to the bonding bill. It would have to come through the city. And so to try to get working on that now, Mike and his group, Mike Larson from SEH and his group have asked me to get this resolution passed, and this will be the first step of trying to seek out some funding for the water filtration plant.
And this is part of the overall building, an overall capital plans and needs.
No, this would have nothing to do with it, because it's coming out of the wastewater board. We would have to be their fiscal agent. As a joint powers board, they do not have a capacity in the state to accept bonding bill funds, and nor does the township.
That you would be the
I think we
pass-through.
remember this before.
Is that considered blighted property then? Because in what I'm reading, now I'm right, 2019-007, grants from the IRRR for redevelopment and removal of blighted
Well, could
property.
they flip it around?
Am I?
Oh, no, wrong one.
Oh, okay.
No, they are flipped around.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah, it should be the next one.
It's, okay, so.
You're looking at 815 then.
Yeah.
Well, make that motion.
It's just a bill.
We pass the resolution to apply for bonding bill money.
Support.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, we're looking at 815, 814.
Yes, what this is when we put down all our properties that we did just before Christmas, unfortunately at the time of the year, they had to leave the basement behind, and the homeowners would really like the basement as well down, so we worked out a deal with IRRB to reapply to their redevelopment program. Excuse me, the total cost would be $1,800. I'm not sure, the last time they funded 75%. Jim had told me that he would them into 100%, but I don't have that on paper. So at the very least, it would be 75%. And he was willing to, yeah, and he was willing to cover the other 25 in full. So the city would actually have no cost to it.
Make that motion.
I'll support.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The last item at our most recent vendors and trust meeting, I was notified the auditors that the vendors and trust hasn't actually paid the city its own share, which amounts to $2,707, by the reason we left it there. But as it came up, I think that morning with Mary, we identified a place and use for that $2,707. So I've been working with Mary Shedd regarding the ski trail, and they would like to petition the council to take that payment that you weren't expecting, that you weren't counting on, and specifically dedicate it towards a groomer. And she put some pictures, she gave me some pictures and some quotes attached there. They're also going to be looking for a snowmobile, but
I'll make a motion.
can dedicate those things.
Yeah.
I'll support that.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Presentation of claims?
Make a motion to pay the bill.
I'll support that.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Before we adjourn, I just want to go back to that previous issue, the conflict of interest, and remind everyone that I made a complete statement. In fact, I read a statement at the council meeting that we had at the Civic Center after Vendors and Trust gave their presentation.
Okay.
So that should be there for public record.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Well.
Thank you.